cell phone and called Chi first. Do you have any way to find a pair of prosthetic limbs? Ikuo was silent for a moment. He keenly realized that Huami's question represented a serious matter. So Ikegawa didn't act as playful and nonchalant as before, and just said, "Let me ask around." Although this is not mass-produced, it was sold before the disaster. As long as it's for sale, Ikegawa will find a way to find it. Huami said very seriously, "I'm counting on you. I should do it." Chi replied solemnly. After hanging up the call with Chi, Huami called Huijing again. She asked Huijing to send someone out as soon as possible to repair the light tube at the Xiangqing Watchtower transmission point. The teleportation point came in handy and will definitely be used a lot in future garrisons. The gorgeous light show makes it impossible to see the people who are moving back and forth in an instant. This is not scientific. Superpower became a household name. Huami had to try to conceal her abilities as much as possible. At this time, outside the inner wall of Xiangqing, several men who had been peeping for many days finally succeeded in entering the engineering team. But they were arranged by Huijing to clear the Hunan A expressway. Several men asked Huijing with some dissatisfaction, "Why do you want us to go to Tonglu? This is already far away from Xiangqing, and we don't want to leave the city." In fact, they just wanted to build a wall around the Lotus Xingxing supermarket. The purpose is to enter the Lotus Xingxing supermarket. It is said that there are many fruit trees planted there. Many people say so. So if they can participate in building the wall, they can enter the wall, establish a long-term theft chain, and transport the fruits inside. Huijing frowned and looked at these people and said directly, "The wall repair project no longer needs people." Because Huami was very fond of the Lotus Xingxing supermarket's material warehouse, the people hired to raise the wall were all the first batch of migrant workers brought here by the contractor. Most of this first batch of migrant workers were relatives of Huijing or the contractor. There are relatives both near and far. There are also some relatives of relatives. There are also some people who are not their relatives but have worked for the contractor for many years and know him well. No irrelevant outsiders are allowed here. Weren't you just recruiting people to repair the vacant land at the city gate? Why did you assign us to dredge the Xiang A expressway? It's so far, we don't want to go. Standing opposite Huijing was a man with a pointed chin and monkey cheeks, full of dissatisfaction. What good can be gained by unblocking the Xiang A expressway? Apart from selling hard labor, there is no other way to earn more than doing it secretly. Even if we cannot enter Xiangqing to build the wall, we can do it at the city gate. Because Xiangqing cannot accommodate so many survivors, the threshold for letting people into the city has been gradually raised. A large number of survivors gathered outside the gate of Xiangqing. There are also groups of tents and small vendors here, but the key is that there are not many garrisons. What does less garrison mean? It means more fun. You are walking in a crowd. If you see a pretty girl, go up to her and touch her a few times. As long as the guards can't see her, it's okay. Moreover, if the environment is large and chaotic enough, they can be lazy and just take supplies without doing any work. There are garrisons everywhere in Xiangqing, making it inconvenient to slack off or have fun. You can do it if you want to. I won't force you if you don't want to. We don't need anyone to raise the wall anymore. Huijing could see that these men came looking for work, but had no sincerity at all. Look at them, not only are they listless, but they are also skinny. He stood there, as if he had no bones, his body leaning to the side. Where does this kind of person get the strength? Miss Hua is not doing charity, and infrastructure projects are not charity projects. Can we build high-quality infrastructure projects by just muddling through? Huijing has been honest and upright all his life, and he hates people who are sneaky and not down to earth. The man with the pointed face and monkey cheeks couldn't help but spit and called out to the men behind him, "If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. Let's go." There is no benefit at all. It's just pure hard labor. Only a fool would do it. The man with the pointed chin and monkey cheeks resolutely rejected Huijing and led his men out of Xiangqing. I happened to meet Feng Huai standing outside the city. Below the watchtower, the light show was spectacular. Feng Huai and the others who were watching stretched their necks, their eyes filled with the dazzling lights. So, the man with the pointed chin and monkey cheeks yelled, "Okay, Feng Huai, I just had bad luck today. and ran into you. When will you return my money and supplies to me? Then his eyes turned and he said to Feng Huai, "Isn't your daughter pretty? If that doesn't work, you can add your niece that you always brag about and sell them together. I'm telling you, if you don't pay us back the money and supplies you owe us, you'll lose these two hands." They all knew that Feng Huai was Huami's uncle, because whenever Feng Huai lost a bet, he would emphasize that he was Huami's uncle. If they want money or supplies, just go to Huami and ask. But Huami is like an elusive dragon, so even if they want to find her, they may not be able to find her. And Huami is the boss behind the RV supermarket. According to unreliable information, the orchard they're going to sneak into today is actually somewhat related to Huami. Since Feng Huai has a niece with such a prominent background, wouldn't it be better to just force Huami out instead of trying to find ways to sneak into the wall construction project? Feng Huai has had bad luck ever since he was driven out of Xiangqing. 9 times out of 10 you lose when you gamble. He was threatened by the man with a pointed chin and monkey face, and was secretly hating his bad luck. How can I just watch the fun and be seen by the debt collectors? Feng Huai is a person who has experienced the hardships of finding a flower. He pointed at Huami, who was walking towards them from a distance, and said to the man with the pointed chin and monkey cheeks, "You can ask her for all the debts I owe you. She is my niece. I raised her. She hasn't repaid me for her life yet. It's easy for her to help me pay off some of the debt." After saying that, Feng Huai's thin body, like a bamboo pole, disappeared into the crowd. The man with the pointed chin and monkey cheeks didn't notice and let Feng Huai slip away. He cursed softly. Then he looked at Huami and stood directly in front of her. Huami was stunned. She stood at the back of the crowd and looked up at the audacious scoundrel opposite her. At this time, Lu Xingyuan had regained some consciousness. Seeing that he was able to cooperate with the medical staff and get on the stretcher, Huami prepared to go shopping at the street stalls outside the city. Because Xiangqing's carrying capacity is limited, the threshold for entering Xiangqing has been raised. Ordinary people and those with criminal records are not allowed to live in the city. The only people who can live in the city are talented people in various fields, pregnant women, children whose parents have both died and have no one to take care of them, and the elderly who are unable to move. There are also vendors who can enter the city to wholesale supplies but cannot live in the city, as well as migrant workers who join the infrastructure teams. Of course, ordinary people who had entered the city earlier would not be driven out of the city and could still live in the city. As a result, a large number of survivors gathered outside Xiangqing. Wherever there are survivors, there will be small stalls, and you can find a lot of good things at these stalls. Huami rarely went out of town and was planning to do some shopping but was stopped by someone. She looked at the man in front of her with a pointed chin and monkey face and thought he looked very familiar. After thinking for a while, she remembered that these men were the ones who had been hanging around outside her Lotus Xingxing supermarket in the surveillance video. This was aimed at her. "Are you Feng Huai's niece?" The man with the pointed face and monkey cheeks took out an IOU from his pocket and showed it to Huami. "This is the money your uncle borrowed from us. You have to pay it back." Huami didn't even look at the densely written note. "Don't you understand the principle that a son should pay for his father's debt? Go find his daughter. Why are you looking for me? I don't know this person well." "Of course not, but it's been a lifetime since we met." If Feng Huai had not died in this life and appeared in front of her again, Huami would not remember what Feng Huai looked like. So if you are not familiar with someone, don't try to contact them. After saying that, she was about to leave. The man with the pointed chin and monkey cheeks stretched out his hand to block her way. He looked at Huami in a frivolous manner. "This matter is not so easy to get over. I have seen many people who owe debts and don't pay them back. They all pretend to be strangers to us. I advise you to be honest. Either pay back the money and supplies for your uncle, or I will find you a job. You are pretty and you can pay back the money and supplies your uncle owes you in just a few years." The premise is that Feng Huai will not gamble again and will not continue to borrow. The possibility of this happening is really too small. They have been in the underworld for so long, but they have never seen a gambler who truly quits gambling. Most of them swear and say they will never gamble again, but at the same time they cannot resist the temptation of gambling and try every possible means to gamble. Every gamble is the last time for gamblers, and every last time, they dream of making a comeback in the next one. Therefore, it is highly likely that Huami will have to pay off Feng Huai's debt for the rest of his life. Huami raised her eyebrows, her eyes full of cold sarcasm. Just as she was about to speak, the man's thick and broad chest pressed against her from behind. A big hand firmly grasped Huami's shoulder, and Gong Yi's voice rang out, "Go behind me." As he spoke, Gong Yi protected Huami's body behind him. He looked at the pointed-faced man opposite him. Before he opened his mouth, the sharpness in his eyes was like a blade, cutting the street urchins opposite him and making them tremble all over. The city garrison commander's epaulets on the man's shoulders shone brightly, as bright as the light show in the distance. The legs of the man with the pointed chin and monkey cheeks began to tremble. I didn't say anything, but I can't just not pay back my debts. He hadn't done anything to Huami yet, so why did the commander run out? In fact, as long as Huami helped Feng Huai return the money and supplies, there would be no need to sell them. Their main purpose in stopping Huami was to force her to take responsibility for Feng Huai's gambling debt. So, what is the relationship between Huami and Gong Yi? Why would Gong Yi come out to defend Huami at this time? Say what you just said again. Gong Yi took 2 steps forward and asked coldly and angrily, "What do you want my wife to do? What kind of job do you want to introduce to my wife?" My wife? Not only the men with pointed chins and monkey cheeks were dumbfounded, even Huami was dumbfounded. She stood behind Gong Yi, raised her fingertips, and poked Gong Yi's back. When did she become his wife? Wasn't it just a one-night stand? Gong Yi ignored the tingling sensation on his spine. He only looked at the street urchins across from him. In my jurisdiction, gambling and prostitution are strictly prohibited. Don't you know that? As he spoke, Gong Yi snatched the IOU from the sharp-nosed and monkey-faced man and glanced at it casually. The handwriting is really ugly. Then he gave it back to the man with pointed cheeks and said coldly, "Who should you ask for this?" The sharp-nosed and monkey-faced men immediately reacted and nodded. "Look for Feng Huai. We only want Feng Huai. It has nothing to do with Madame Ling Roll." Gong Yi scolded, his eyes full of ruthlessness. A few people ran into the crowd in a panic and disappeared in a moment. Huami stood behind Gong Yi and said in a muffled voice, "Just let them go like that? They don't have any missing limbs." Didn't Gong Yi come to help her? How could he help her without even seeing blood? Gong Yi summoned 2 garrisons without saying a word and whispered to them, "Change into plain clothes and follow them to see how many people they have. Investigate secretly and solve the problem if necessary. There is no need to notify me." Killing a few street thugs here would make too much noise, and there are more and more of these street thugs, which has seriously affected the public security management of Xiangqing and City B. Their hidden dangers are no less serious than earthquakes and jelly water. Some street urchins do more than just petty thefts. The crimes they commit are enough to get them shot 100 times. The problems that Huami may encounter are also encountered by many women in and outside Xiangqing and City B. But due to various external pressures, they couldn't say it out loud. Killing a few street thugs is useless. It will only allow the truly heinous criminals to hide their crimes even more deeply. It is better to explore in secret, solve them one by one, and eradicate the cancer. Huami smiled for a moment and continued to poke Gong Yi's back spine. "Boss, I want to kill too. Please assign me a position. I am the sharpest knife in your hand. I am the most powerful assassin in human history. You are my ancestor." Gong Yi couldn't bear it anymore and turned sideways, grabbing Huami's hand. The warm and dry big hand held Huami's hand with a reassuring power. She struggled, but couldn't get free. Then he looked up at Gong Yi and said, "Let go, don't touch me. It's inconvenient." "She's pregnant. What can she do?" "Disgusting." Gong Yi stared at Huami. She looked at him with such a clear and sharp look of disdain that Gong Yi couldn't help but hold her hand tighter. "We still have some things to discuss. Don't move." After saying that, he took her hand and walked along the outskirts of the crowd towards the Xiangqing city gate. Before going to rescue Lu Xingyuan, Gong Yi and Huami decided to talk about the issue of the child. Now that Gong Yi is back and Huami happens to be in Xiangqing, it's a perfect opportunity. Huami thought the same, so she let Gong Yi hold her hand and walk with her to the city gate. The rain was drizzling but not as heavy as in the past few days, but the weather was getting colder. Huami was thinking in a mess. 2 months ago, there was news that a cold front was moving southward. It should be here soon. In fact, in her previous life, the first natural disaster Huami encountered was a cold wave. So at the beginning of her life, she didn't intend to do something so big and ordered 1,000 winter clothes. Now, considering Gong Yi's garrison, Yang Honglin's police, the factory director's water plant workers, Yi Rong and Yu Mengmeng from the RV supermarket, the contractor, and Hu Jing's infrastructure team, 1,000 winter clothes are not enough for Qi Chuan's friends. On Gong Yi's side alone, there are more than 5,000 garrisons. A gust of cold rain was blown over by the cold wind. Gong Yi turned around and stuffed Huami into the watchtower at the city gate. The first floor of the tower was piled with supplies needed for guard duty. Gong Yi took a look inside and frowned tightly. He hadn't taken care of it for a few days, and they couldn't even handle the garrison's internal affairs. These rascals are trying to rebel. Gong Yi cursed and pointed to a small stool for Huami to sit on. Wait a minute, I'll go and give you a lecture. After saying that, Gong Yi buttoned up the top button of his garrison uniform, walked out of the watchtower, and went to give a lecture to the garrison on duty. Huami saw Gong Yi busying around every day, taking care of such trivial household affairs. He was simply a worry-inducing person. She shook her head, tightened her clothes, took out her cell phone, and called Qi Chuan. Now she not only wants Qi Chuan to find a prosthetic limb, but also wants Qi Chuan to find winter clothes. If things continue like this, there's no telling how much her population will expand, so she'll have to take as many winter clothes as she has. Didn't you come to one of my friends last time and order 1 million men's sweaters of various sizes? Qi Chuan replied, feeling a little strange. This batch of sweaters hasn't been fully delivered yet, Sister Hua. Have you forgotten? Because Huami Lion opened its mouth so wide. The mouth was so wide that Qi Chuan's friend's factory worked frantically by candlelight during that period. Finally, we lived up to everyone's expectations and knitted out 1,000 men's size S sweaters. Before they could continue knitting, Ikegawa's friend's sweater factory closed down due to a shortage of supplies. These 1,000 sweaters are now lying in the corner of Huami's level 20 warehouse number 1. Very inconspicuous. Huami opened the control panel of the End Times supermarket and looked at it, then said to Qi Chuan, "It's still not enough, and the size is too small. The S size is only suitable for thin men. According to the garrison's physique, it is definitely not suitable. You have to wear a larger size when you are on garrison. Chuanzi, look at the weather. It's getting colder and colder. The rain has turned into sleet. Think about it. We can't look at the weather now with the same eyes as before. Sweaters are no longer suitable." Huami tried her best to make Qi Chuan understand the seriousness of the problem. Because the cold wave in the previous life was really cold, many people were frozen to death in southern cities like Xiangqing. Moreover, the rainwater will turn into jelly after falling on the ground and accumulating for a while. If this jelly water solidifies when it gets cold, all places will be frozen. Therefore, it may not be enough to have only cold-proof clothing. You also need to prepare a complete set of cold-proof and frost-proof equipment. Qi Chuan agreed that in the case of frequent natural disasters, they could only search as much as possible. Just as Huami and Qi Chuan were talking on the phone, Gong Yi's powerful roar was faintly heard from outside the tower. He was scolding the garrisons for not keeping their houses in order and making a mess of the tower. Huami listened, and after hanging up the call with Qi Chuan, she silently tidied her clothes, making sure they were neat. Before Gong Yi entered the tower, she smoothed out the wrinkles on her clothes. When Gong Yi smiled and moved a stool to sit opposite her, Huami immediately sat up straight, like a primary school student listening to the teacher's lecture. Gong Yi was stunned for a moment. "Don't be nervous. Just talk about the daughter's problems." Huami nodded, protecting her lower abdomen with both hands, and emphasized seriously, "I want to give birth to the child." Although Huami understood Gong Yi's attitude all along, He also wanted to give birth to the child. But she still wants to emphasize it. Neither of us has any objection to this. Gong Yi explained. He looked at Huami. I suggest we get married and make it official. Upon hearing this, Huami was stunned for a moment, then started coughing desperately, and she was choked by her own saliva. She didn't expect Gong Yi to be so fierce. The man opposite her quickly stood up, poured her a glass of water, sat beside her, and patted her back. Why are you so careless? You choked even without eating? You are so careless. His tone was slightly reprimanding, but the concern in his words was obvious. Huami finally calmed down her cough. Perhaps because of the cough, her cheeks were red. Is it that troublesome? In fact, all we need is for the child to be born and have a father, right? As soon as these words came out, Gong Yi, who was sitting on the bench next to him, turned pale. He said very seriously, my children cannot live in a broken family, especially my daughters, as it will have an impact on their mental health and growth. In this kind of environment, people are still considering whether their mental health is healthy or not. It's good enough if they can survive. Huami thought about it and turned her head to look at Gong Yi. You insist that there is only this one solution? It's not impossible for her to marry Gong Yi. Anyway, she is not prepared to take care of 2 children and find a man to fall in love with in such a difficult environment. It's not that I don't believe in love, it's just that it's too troublesome. And the chance of finding someone who would love her child as if it were his own is very small. Instead of spending her time thinking about how to please a man, she might as well stock up on supplies and upgrade her apocalypse supermarket. It's so simple now. The child has her father to protect her, and she has a big thigh to hold her. The key is that Gong Yi's thigh is quite strong. And it seems that he is looking forward to having his own child. On the same day, I received 2 reviews. In the morning, a reader relegated the book to the dust, and the other reader said that the book was a treasure and that he liked it very much. Both are long comments, one scolding, the other praising. So you see, the texts I wrote are not completely useless. There are people who have read the latest chapters and left comments saying they like them very much. We cannot be perfect and loved by everyone, but we can make a little progress every day. He didn't think about Plan B. Since the day Huami was just a paper man to him, this had been his only choice. Huami responded blankly and finally said slowly, we can't get married now. No one will register. Let the administrators at the management level do something. They have been idle for a long time. Gong Yi felt that it was not a big problem. It was not a problem at all. Huami thought for a while and said slowly, your job is too dangerous. What if an enemy finds me? For example, Chun Hu. Although Huami also wanted to kill Chun Hu, for a man like Gong Yi, Chun Hu would definitely not be the only enemy in his life. This is a big shot. He will definitely have many enemies in the future. Those enemies have various means of revenge. If they cannot kill Gong Yi, they will target Gong Yi's wife and children. Thinking about it in this regard, Huami found it very complicated. Gong Yi glanced at her sideways. You're worried that I'll get you into trouble? Then why aren't you worried that you'll get me into trouble? He has been the one who has been taking the blame for her all along. He is the one who causes trouble everywhere and cleans up her mess. As soon as these words came out, Huami smiled awkwardly. Hey, it's all in the past. Why are you still talking about it? She waved her hand, writing off everything that had happened not long ago, and then added, then you will definitely attract many women in the future. At that time, your various rumored girlfriends will come to me and use endless conspiracies and tricks to get rid of me and the children so that they can get promoted. Gong Yi lowered his head and rubbed his brows in pain. What I'm saying is, can you read less romantic novels and watch fewer TV dramas? It's not good for prenatal education. If he had a physique for scandals, why would he still use a paper man as a symbol of his emotions at such an old age? He didn't even have a first love. Now he wants to find a wife, but no one is willing to marry him. With his physique that is insulated from the opposite adult love, how many vicious female characters can he create to harm Huami and his 2 daughters? Huami was at a loss for words for a moment, as if there was really no reason to refuse. Then I'll have to think about it. After all, an official announcement is a big deal. She needs to think carefully about her interests and consider the issue more comprehensively. You have to think about it for at least a few years, until the children grow up. Think about it now. I'll go out and make a phone call and have the management come to work immediately. I'll give you 10 minutes to think it over. Gong Yi stood up and walked out of the tower. Rather than giving Huami time to consider whether to marry him, it would be better to say that it gives Huami time to adjust her mood and prepare to go to the management building to register for marriage. Huami said huh? And was about to speak. Gong Yi took 2 steps towards the door on the first floor of the watchtower. He turned around and took out a box from his pocket. Huami took it with a puzzled look, opened it, and saw a ring inside, a very simple style made of platinum. This ring cannot be compared with the 20-carat diamond ring given by the contractor. But if you look closely, you can see a circle of words engraved on it. Gong Yi and Huami. The ring was made by Gong Yi himself. I did it in the dark before ambush on Chun Hu's villa complex. Gong Yi explained seriously, his dark eyes fixed on the subtle expressions on Huami's face. He was like a precise sniper, stubbornly refusing to let Huami go. If you don't like it, tell me what you want, and I'll change it for you later. For some reason, Huami felt a tight grip on her heart. She lowered her eyes slightly, took out the ring from the small box, and slowly put it on her finger. She thought of the terms siege, trap, and shackles in her mind. The ring is true to size, though. And this. Gong Yi breathed a sigh of relief, took out 2 larger boxes, and handed them to Huami. For my 2 daughters. Huami raised her eyes slightly, took the box, and opened it. Inside were 2 pairs of silver baby safety bracelets. In Xiangqing, there is a custom of giving a peace bracelet to a newborn baby. Huami didn't think about it that way at all. But Gong Yi thought of it. When she raised her head and looked at Gong Yi turned around and walked out, saying, "Please keep it for the girls." "Oh, no," I said, "it doesn't necessarily mean 2 daughters." Huami's voice was automatically blocked by Gong Yi, and he had already walked out of the tower. "Okay," I said, 2 sons. She angrily put the 2 pairs of peace bracelets into the level 20 number 1 storage. Anyway, this man would not listen to her. He was so stubborn about wanting 2 daughters. Don't cry when 2 sons are born. Then everything went unusually smoothly. Gong Yi returned to the tower in less than 10 minutes, with a smile on his handsome face, and drove to the management building with Huami. The whole building is as dilapidated as before, but the marriage registration office is already in operation. Finally, everything is done in one go, taking photos, stamping, and issuing the marriage certificate. Looking at the bright red marriage certificate, Huami could feel the heat from the certificate-making machine. He looked at Gong Yi in confusion again, and Gong Yi had already put his marriage certificate neatly in his inner pocket. "Give me your marriage certificate, too. You're too emotionally unstable. You might come back and ask me for a divorce someday." Gong Yi reached out and asked Huami for her marriage certificate. Huami was confused. He could safely give her the child's safety bracelet for safekeeping, but he was not confident in giving her their marriage certificate for safekeeping. Whose emotions are more unstable? Huami doesn't understand either. But it's just a marriage certificate. It's already this time. If she really wants to get a divorce, she can just walk away. It doesn't matter whether the marriage certificate is given to Gong Yi for safekeeping or not. Getting married is pretty unnecessary. She generously handed over her marriage certificate. It was not until Gong Yi kept Huami's marriage certificate in his own hands that he started to laugh again. "This is my bank card and the property certificate of my house in Xiangqing. There is money in the bank card, but the house has collapsed." Gong Yi gave Huami a brown paper bag and added, "Whether the house collapses or not, this is all my belongings. You keep them." He only kept the marriage certificate and gave the rest to Huami. Huami took the brown paper bag hesitantly, not knowing what to say. Then I heard Gong Yi say, "I have to go find Chun-Hu now. Please go see Lu Xinyuan for me when you are free. If Chun-Hu doesn't die, no one knows how many Lu Shenjiwans will be harmed next." Originally, Gong Yi wanted to take time out from ambushing Chun-Hu to send Lu Xinyuan back and get married. Things were bunched up at once, and he was in a hurry, so he looked very apologetic. Only then did Huami come back to her senses from the series of mishaps. She finally regained some of her thoughts and said, Okay, boss, you go ahead. I'll take care of Captain Liu. When facing Hua Mi, he kept saying Big Boss on the left and Gong Yi on the right. Gong Yi's soared like brows furrowed. Then he looked at Hua Mi, who had no sense of being someone else's wife, and turned away gracefully. He pursed his lips. After a while, when Gong Yi reached the city gate, Chao Feng followed him. Boss, take me out with you this time. He didn't want to hide in Xiangqing anymore. It was more dangerous outside than inside the city, and he was needed more. What are you doing? Gong Yi glared at Chao Feng and said, Go back quickly. Xiangqing is in such a mess. Who can I rely on if you leave? Because of Chao Feng, Tang Yu, and Fang Yuqi, Gong Yi could go out of the city to find Shun Hu without any worries. Otherwise, with so many survivors, the little things that happen every day could wear him down to death in the city. Chao Feng's eyes were red. But Lu Xingyuan's story told all the garrisons that the world outside the city was cruel, not a fairy tale or a novel. It's a cruel reality. As a garrison, one should not seek enjoyment, but face danger. Gong Yi kicked Chao Feng and took out 2 red books. Your sister-in-law and your 2 nieces are all in Xiangqing. People like them are also in Xiangqing. Can you say that what you are doing now is meaningless? Fenger, anything related to guarding is of great significance to us. If you don't guard this city, other garrisons will have to do it. All the garrisons are just like you, just picking the most difficult and dangerous tasks. Then who will protect the pregnant women and children in this city? What's more, Gong Yi really didn't think that the danger level in Xiangqing was much lower than that outside. He spoke earnestly, shaking the 2 marriage certificates in his hand vigorously. It was as if he was trying to show off secretly and was afraid that Chao Feng wouldn't see it. Chao Feng lowered his eyes, seeming a little discouraged. After a while, he suddenly perked up and looked at the marriage certificate in Gong Yi's hand. Boss, are you really married? The marriage registration center of the management level was put into emergency operation, and Chao Feng knew about this. They also vaguely guessed that the boss was going to get a marriage certificate with Sister Hua. But I didn't expect that the boss could really tear this certificate down. Sister Hua clearly looks like she is difficult to deal with. Gong Yi originally wanted to show off secretly while preaching that he was already a married man. But he received a questioning look from Chao Feng. He immediately put away the 2 red books in his hand and said angrily, If it's not true, is it cooked? From now on, your boss is also a married man, so hurry back to work. You are so long-winded. Having said that, gonged at married people, he strode away. He was still busy selecting his men to search for Chern Hu and had no time to chat with Chao, single people Feng. At this time, outside the city, the man with a pointed chin and monkey cheeks brought his men and found Feng Huai angrily. He took the IOU written by Feng Huai and slapped Feng Huai in the face, causing him to fall directly into the rain on the ground. Feng Huai, you almost killed me, you know that? Your niece is already the commander's wife, and you asked me to go and collect the debt from her. Feng Huai covered his swollen face, coughed up blood, and his eyes sparkled. Really? Huami hooked the commander? Isn't that a good thing? He actually had a relationship with the commander-in-chief. Haha, this was something Feng Huai didn't expect. Although I used to feel that there was an indescribable ambiguity in the relationship between Gong Yi and Huami. But Feng Huai thought that Huami could only be Gong Yi's underground lover at most. After all, how could those big men, who were surrounded by women on both sides, have only one woman? Feng Huai seemed to see the extravagant upper class waving at him. He had endless supplies and money for gambling, and Gong Yi's garrison could be used at his command. The man with the pointed chin and monkey face in front of him had to nod and bow when he saw him. That depends on whether others care about you or not. That's a good thing. The man with a pointed chin and monkey cheeks kicked Feng Huai in the stomach. He was furious. Although he also wanted to get back the gambling debt owed by Feng Huai from Huami, Huami's status was too high now. She is the wife of the garrison commander. Even if these gangsters want to blackmail someone, they can never find the garrison commander. Isn't that just walking into the muzzle of a gun? Thinking of how he had almost escaped death from Gong Yi's hands, the sharp-nosed and monkey-faced man kicked Feng Huai in anger. A group of people beat Fong Huai until he was almost dead. Seeing that the garrison patrol team was about to arrive, the man with a pointed chin and monkey cheeks chose the right time and squatted in front of Fong Huai. Looking at Fong Huai's face that had been beaten into a pig's head, he said, "I'll help you contact Brother Fan. Go back now and ask your daughter to pack her clothes and go to work with Brother Fan tomorrow. You must obey me, or I'll chop off both of your hands and see what you can bet with." After saying that, a group of people walked away. Fong Huai stumbled to his feet from the cold rain and walked back. Seeing Fong Xian folding clothes in the tent, he said weakly, irritably, and disgustedly, "Why are you still packing clothes?" Brother Monkey said that from now on, you should follow Brother Fan to make money, otherwise he will chop off both of my hands. The meaning of following Brother Fan to make money is to go out and sell. So Fong Xian finally waited for this day, right? She didn't have any special abilities. When she was in school, she didn't study hard and didn't become a talented person who could get the attention and protection of the garrisons. After Xiangqing and City B simultaneously canceled their 3 free meals and 2 snacks for the survivors, the lives of Fong Xian and Fong Huai became visibly difficult. Now, the father and daughter were even more barred from entering the city by the garrison, and both of their faces were blacklisted in the city's security system. Without access to the city, there are very few job opportunities available. They cannot participate in jobs in the city, such as pumping jelly water, cleaning up garbage, lighting roads, and expanding and repairing RV warehouses. The tow clearing team that was clearing the Hunan A expressway outside the city was still short of people, but Fong Huai only wanted to get some capital and win back all the money he had lost. So, he didn't want to make a living by labor. Unfortunately, Fong Xian didn't want to either. She actually rejected her father's suggestion because it was too cheap. She put a high price on herself. Unless he is a high-quality man like Qin Ziren, whom she can accompany in the name of love and in exchange for a high amount of money. Otherwise, the kind that costs dozens of dollars per time and is used many times a day is too cheap. Fong Xian felt that given her circumstances, it wouldn't have come to this. Fong Xian, who was poor but ambitious, thought that if she waited a little longer, she might meet another man like Qin Ziren. Speaking of which, where did Brother Ziren go? Why haven't I seen him for a long time? Fong Xian shook her head and resigned herself to helping Fong Huai up. Only then was he thrown out of Xiangqing and could never enter again. Of course, Fong Xian couldn't say this to others. She was too embarrassed to admit that she had hit a wall in front of Gong Yi. He just said that he was implicated by Fong Huai. Fong Huai was extremely weak. As a gambler, he often hangs out in dark, crowded, air-stainless environments filled with smoke, and often eat 3 meals at irregular times. His body had long been broken down. After entering the disaster period, he experienced earthquakes, long-distance hiking, etc. After arriving in Xiangqing, he continued his previous dark gambling days. Every day he ate the previous meal and didn't eat the next, or sometimes didn't eat at all. It wasn't because he had no food, but because he wanted to save the food for gambling. Fong Huai had already become as thin as a bamboo pole. Now he was surrounded and beaten by Monkey Brother and others, which took away the last bit of his energy. Now he couldn't even walk a few steps, so Fong Xian could only help him lie down in the tent. But Fong Huai was still cursing. "You are useless. I have told you long ago that you should cry and beg your sister. She is very successful now and will have a good life in the future. How can she let you down?" Fong Xian felt extremely aggrieved and said nothing. Finally, Fong Huai made the final decision. "Forget it, that's all you can do. Let's just do it. Go to Brother Fan's place and clean yourself up. He will come to pick you up tomorrow. Don't look sad along the way, or you'll be noticed by the garrison." Although this is outside the city, and the garrisons outside the city are not as numerous as those inside the city, the garrisons near Xiangqing are still very disciplined. The issue of street prostitution is not allowed in or outside Xiangqing. Brother Fan placed all those women in a small unfinished villa complex between Xiangqing and City A. He set up a red light district there, and Gong Yi's garrison could not control it for the time being. In the unfinished villa complex, Most of the women who were hired to do business did so voluntarily. Because the women who volunteer are tight-lipped and won't run away. Unless there is a woman who is particularly good-looking and has a prominent background, it is not worth it for Brother Fan to use force. Most of the men who patronize the business have heard about it through word of mouth, and only go there with money and supplies if they have related needs. Although this is a world of chaos where human life is cheaper than grass, but things are still okay here with Brother Fan. I haven't heard of any tragic incidents. Therefore, it had not yet reached the garrison. Fong Xian was a little unwilling and couldn't help asking, "Dad, do you think so lowly of me? Can I find a better one? Can't we wait a little longer?" Fong Hui was exhausted, and he gathered up his strength and slapped him. "Why don't you find a man who can let me gamble away all my money in one go? You wouldn't be here." It's really heartbreaking. After Fong Hui said this, he gasped for breath and looked like he was about to die. Then he said to Fong Xian, who was crying with her hands covering her face, "This is your fate. If you don't accept it, find a way to get your sister, who is now the commander's wife, to work with you. If you can really get her to work with you, you will have a promising future." Given Huami's beauty, Fong Hui had actually considered selling her to the red light district a long time ago. Yes, he had thought about it before the world became like this. It would be great to go to the red light district. Huami will definitely be able to become the top star there. In this way, the Fong family can rely on Huami for their livelihood for decades. But before Fong Hui could form this idea, Huami relied on her own abilities to get admitted to Xiangqing from their small place, and went to university in Xiangqing. "I have been studying until now, and during this period I have never returned to the Fong family except to give money." Fong Hui didn't want to bring up this matter. Now, Huami has become the commander's wife, which is even more impossible. Fong Xian felt that her father was only good at talking but never thought of any solutions. Just like before, Fong Hui wanted to introduce Huami to work in the red light district, but Fong Hui always just thought about it but never had the ability to do anything. Fong Xian secretly hated Fong Hui and said, "She's doing so well now. How could she go with me to Brother Fan to make a living? How can I do that? Otherwise, Dad, you can go find some gamblers and we can work it out?" Before she could finish her words, her father, who was only thinking about making a comeback, rolled his eyes and fainted. Judging from the situation, he is probably not far from death. So why? What Fong Xian has to endure, Huami will have to endure even more. On the contrary, half of what Huami got belonged to Fong Xian. So it was so natural for Fong Xian to Qin Ziren away. At this time, Fong Xian was about to have nowhere else to go, and she had no choice but to go to Brother Fan to sell herself cheaply. Why? Fong Xian's eyes revealed a twisted hatred. In this world, even green tea and white flowers can become poisonous. She stood up, not caring whether Fong Hui was still struggling in the tent. She wandered around the cluster of tents outside the city, wandering aimlessly, with a heart full of injustice. Suddenly, she stopped, stood still, and saw an acquaintance. Qin Xiaolan. Qin Xiaolan is Qin Ziren's sister. At this time, Qin Xiaolan, with a ponytail and wearing a raincoat, was holding the hand of a clean-looking and gentle man who seemed to come from a good family. The two were strolling around the stalls at the city gate, and it could be seen from the corners of their eyes and eyebrows. There is love between the two of them. What a beautiful girl. Even though her brother is missing, she still has a beautiful and pure love. The key point is that Fong Xian instinctively feels that this man is a high-quality man who is no less than Qin Ziren. Fong Xian hurried over, smiled at Qin Xiaolan, and glanced at the man next to Qin Xiaolan with lustful eyes. Then he looked at Qin Xiaolan, the beautiful young female college student. "Xiaolan, what a coincidence, is your brother back?" Qin Xiaolan was stunned for a moment before she recognized who was in front of her. She did not answer but asked, "Sister Fong Xian, do you have any news about my brother?" It seems that Qin Ziren did not return to the Qin family. Fong Xian shook her head. "I don't know. I only know that your brother was madly trying to win back my sister Huami during that time. If you want to find your brother, why not ask my sister?" Then she fixed her eyes on the face of Qin Xiaolan's boyfriend and asked, "Xiaolan, When did you get a boyfriend? Why don't you introduce one to me? Soon as these words fell, Qin Xiaolan suddenly felt alert. In fact, Qin Xiaolan knew that her brother had a girlfriend named Huami, and she also knew the relationship between her brother and Fong Xian, because that's what her mother said. When talking about this matter at that time, Qin Xiaolan clearly remembered that her mother looked very proud and sighed. Your brother has been outstanding since he was young, and many girls are willing to pay him homage. Look at the two sisters Hua Mi and Fong Xian. One is capable of making money, and the other knows how to coax men. If these two sisters combined their strengths, your brother wouldn't have to date two girls at the same time. So Qin Xiaolan knew that Fong Xian had stolen someone else's boyfriend, and she was a repeat offender. She protected Ma Jixuan behind her, looked at Fong Xian with a little contempt, and asked again without answering, "You mean, my brother's two-timing affair has finally been exposed?" "So, sister, Huami broke up with my brother? But Huami can make money and has the ability. This is enough to eat for a lifetime." Therefore, Qin Xiaolan's attitude was the same as her mother's, and she hid her contempt for Fong Xian deep in her heart. Fong Xian, who was standing in front of Qin Xiaolan, glanced at Ma Jixuan and nodded. "My sister has met many men recently, and Brother Xiren has been trying to win back my sister, so maybe Brother Xiren has encountered something unexpected." Alas, I don't mean to curse Brother Xiren. The implicit meaning of this statement is that Huami is fickle and has affairs with many men. Qin Xiren has already suffered revenge from the men of Huami. In fact, Fong Xian doesn't know the real situation. She is just implying it. She wanted Qin Xiren to be alive more than anyone else. Because only Qin Xiren is alive, she has someone to rely on in this difficult world. You won't have to sell yourself out just to make a living. But now it is obvious that Fong Xian has a new goal. She looked at Ma Jixuan with a charming smile on her face. Qin Xiaolan ignored Fong Xian's words. She nodded to Fong Xian thoughtfully and said politely, "Sister Fong Xian, I'll go ask Huami first. Can you give me your contact information? If there are any problems, we can keep in touch." After hearing Fong Xian's words, Qin Xiaolan's way of addressing Huami also changed, from Sister Huami to just calling her Huami. Their lives now are like entering primitive society, inconvenient in every way. Even communication has become a big problem. There is an RV supermarket in the city where they sell universal signal connectors, which are said to be a black technology. At times like this, with this universal signal connector, you can contact anyone you want. But the Qin family didn't have that much money to buy it. A few days ago, a universal signal connector was sold for 100,000 yuan, but Qin's mother dragged her feet and didn't buy it. In the past few days, the price of a universal signal connector has risen to 150,000. Ever since Qin Xiren disappeared, the Qin family has been struggling financially. They have to save the few 100,000 yuan they have left to buy 3 meals a day. Otherwise, the Qin family would be out of food. So Qin's mother was extremely anxious and urged Qin Xiaolan to get married to Ma Jixuan all day long. Only in this way can life have support. However, Qin Xiaolan and Ma Jixuan also met in Xiangqing, and they did not date for long. Ma Jixuan didn't mention marriage, so Qin Xiaolan didn't feel comfortable bringing it up actively. Fortunately, Ma Jixuan is the younger brother of Xi City Administrator Ma Yongchun, and Qin Jun is Ma Jixuan's sister-in-law. Ma Jixuan was not short of money and was generous to Qin Xiaolan. He would give Qin Xiaolan and her mother some supplies from time to time. Except for not buying the universal signal connector for Qin Xiaolan and Qin's mother, Ma Jixuan delivered all the supplies bought in the RV supermarket to Qin Xiaolan. The two of them continued to date, and Qin Xiaolan didn't lose anything. What's more, love cannot be measured by material things, and she also wanted to test Ma Jixuan more. Fong Xian originally wanted to tell Qin Xiaolan the location of the tent where she was currently living. But she rolled her eyes and said to Qin Xiaolan, "I live between City A and Xiangqing Road, in that unfinished villa area. It's very famous. After you find my sister, you can come to find me there. If you can't find my sister, you can come to me, and I can find you a job and a way out." The unfinished villa area is famous because of its reputation. As long as you ask around, people who know about it will know what the place is for. But everyone looked very secretive and would not say it clearly. Sure enough, neither Ma Jishuan nor Qin Xiaolan understood. Fong Xian smiled when she looked at Ma Jishuan, a man with simple emotional experience. Easy to hook. Qin Xiaolan looked affectionate and leaned towards the man beside her. Fong Xian's eyes made Qin Xiaolan feel very uncomfortable. As if to reassure Qin Xiaolan, Ma Jishuan's face was full of doting, and he put his arm around Qin Xiaolan's shoulders. Fong Xian's eyes turned red as she watched, and something called jealousy spread in her chest. This feeling is too familiar. Fong Xian had the same feeling when she saw Huami and Qin Ziren standing together. So, facing Ma Jishuan, she wanted to him more and more. Contestant Ma Ji was seen holding a mobile phone with a universal signal connector attached to it. A universal signal connector costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is a symbol of wealth. Having money equals having supplies. Fong Xian's heart became even more twisted. In this world, all women have good men and a long-term meal ticket. Only she didn't. Why doesn't she have it? After saying goodbye to Qin Xiaolan, Fong Xian found those hooligans who often wandered outside the city. That was the monkey brother who threatened Fong Huai and asked him to chop off his hands. She doesn't want to sell herself too cheaply. She is young and beautiful, and she still has a chance to make a comeback. Monkey brother and his gang of hooligans, who looked like scoundrels, brought Fong Xian to a tent. The leader pointed at the tent and said to Fong Xian, "Tell me, what do you want us to do? Do you have a way to get your beautiful sister out of Xiangqing? Tell me quickly, or we brothers will kill you today." Fong Xian mustered up her courage, looked at Brother Monkey, and smiled charmingly. "Brother Monkey, I'm here to discuss a business deal with you. I want to introduce a sister to work for Brother Fan. She's not my sister, but she's not bad-looking either. Don't worry, I promise their families won't cause trouble." A huge plan took shape in Fong Xian's mind. "You also know my sister's current status. It's unrealistic for her to go to Brother Fan, but we can also use my sister's status as our support, right? Brother Fan is still too cautious in doing things. The red light district only recruits women who are willing to work. You won't find good quality then. Brother Monkey and Brother Pink are birds of a feather. Because of the collapse of order, they have become more and more unscrupulous in doing things." After hearing Fong Xian say this, Monkey Brother also thought this was a good suggestion. There are too few people gambling and too few men patronizing businesses in the red light district. In other words, it's not chaotic enough, and the lives of the survivors are not miserable enough. If all those beautiful women were desperate, and there were many beautiful women in the red light district, would men flock to the red light district? I still earn too little now, and it will always be too little. Monkey Brother looked Fong Xian up and down, reached out and held Fong Xian's shoulder, squeezing it meaningfully. "If your sister had taken care of you and your father, you too wouldn't have fallen to this point. However, your suggestion is still a good one. They were just lacking someone who could lure the beautiful women who were guarding under the garrison's noses to the red light district. It is unrealistic to let them grab women on their own. Because the order inside and outside Xiangqing is well organized, if there is a big commotion, the garrison will shoot at these street urchins." So Fong Xian's appearance and proposal were just right. Fong Xian lowered her head and glanced at the dirty hand of Monkey Brother lingering on her shoulder. She knew that if she couldn't give Monkey Brother a little sweet treat, the deal would not be done. So Fong Xian concealed the disgust in her eyes, curled her lips, took 2 steps forward, and gently hugged Monkey Brother's waist. Monkey Brother became proud and winked at his minions. He carried Fong Xian into the tent. Huami, who had no sense of being married at all, carried 2 large bags of fruit and went to the convalescent car behind the RV supermarket to see Lu Xingyuan. As soon as she walked to the RV supermarket, she received a series of prompts. Start security scan. Completion of security and defense works defense project. Upgrading and expanding the walls of the RV supermarket warehouse rating. Intermediate protection project. 12 square meters of blackland are obtained. Please select a site for the blackland. When a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X12 during this period, Not to mention that the entire Xiangqing has not developed at all. In fact, it has developed relatively quickly. The entire RV supermarket has expanded several times compared to its original size, and the customer flow has increased dozens of times. The RV walled warehouse, which was originally only the size of a palm, is now as big as an entire square. Huami held an umbrella in her left hand and some fruits in her right hand. She looked up at the dark and rainy day. The bus that was supposed to be parked behind the RV was now replaced by 10 luxury pop-top off-road RVs. Before disasters happened frequently, you could only drive a super-large RV with an A license. I don't know where you roam, and the others got all this. These luxurious pop-top off-road RVs were turned into hospitals for garrisons and police, as well as residences for Yi Rong, Yu Mengmeng, and others. Huami found the RV where Lu Xingyuan lived. Just as she was about to go up, she saw Lu Xingyuan sitting on the small attic on the second floor with an expression that looked as if he would rather die than live. Oh no, is he going to commit suicide? If Lu Xingyuan really jumped down from such a high off-road RV, given his current physical condition, he might actually die. Huami quickly ran up to the RV and climbed up to the small attic. Lu Xingyuan, things may not be as bad as you think. Although you lost both legs, you are now very strong, which is a good thing. Lu Xingyuan was sitting in a wheelchair, with his trouser legs empty. Ordinary people suffered the same experience as him, having their legs sawed off and being beaten half to death. He should still be lying in the ICU now. Whether he can survive or not is another matter. But Lu Xingyuan can already sit in a wheelchair and move freely by holding the wheels with his bandaged hands. A large part of the reason was that he took painkillers and applied a layer of hemostatic gel to the wound. Another small part of the reason is that he has an extremely strong will. In the small attic of the luxury off-road RV, Lu Xingyuan came back to his senses and stopped looking into the distance. He turned his wheelchair and looked at Huami's sister-in-law. I don't want to die. There are still many things to be done. Lu Xingyuan will not die. He pondered for a while and then asked sister-in-law, do you know why I am so strong? This is a question he can't figure out. What happened recently has completely overturned his understanding. Each one of them gave him indigestion. He couldn't find anyone to ask, so since his sister-in-law brought up the question, he decided to ask. Huami pondered and put down the 2 large bags of fruit in her hands. I don't know about that either. Maybe you were the chosen one who punished evil and promoted good, so God gave you great strength as a reward. Observing the expression on Lu Xingyuan's face, Huami asked carefully, how do you feel now? Is your strength getting stronger or weaker? Or is there no change in your strength? She had asked the garrisons in City A, at the material depot in City B. They were initially stuffed with too many energy, so their strength would grow stronger and stronger. But as time goes by, their bodies will gradually consume the energy ball, and the sudden increase in strength will become smaller and smaller. Finally returned to the status of ordinary people. It only took a few days. Lu Xingyuan frowned slightly, clenched his fists, and felt the changes in his body. It's no different from yesterday. I still feel the same strength. Therefore, the effect of this energy water drop lasts much longer than that of the energy light ball. It also makes an ordinary person much stronger. Huami took out a brand new notebook and a pen and handed them to Lu Xingyuan. Then write down your daily strength changes. If your strength decreases, we can think of other ways. Lu Xingyuan obediently took the notebook and pen. He lowered his head and said to Huami, sister-in-law, you are right. If I am the chosen one, then God has given me so much strength. Before this strength disappears, I want to make use of it a little bit. Even his sister-in-law said that God gave him so much strength because of his past efforts to punish evil and promote good. This coincides with his idea. He didn't know how long this divine power would last. Maybe tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, he would become an ordinary person again. So some things become urgent. Some evils must be eradicated completely. Huami tilted her head and looked at Lu Xingyuan, feeling an indelible sense of sadness in her heart. Until now, this feeling of bitterness has become more intense. She pursed her lips slightly, looked at Lu Xingyuan's empty trouser legs, and advised, It's already like this. Just take a good rest in the future. Look at my RV supermarket. Although the living conditions are not very good, but here, everyone lives happily. Worried that Lu Xingyuan might feel inferior, Huami continued, you can help me with some things here, like moving some goods or something. You are indispensable. Let's not go out and fight. From now on, it's fine to be an ordinary person. In her previous life, Huami had never been so close to the garrison. She knew that the garrison at the beginning of the end of the world were all the best people. But that was after all looking at these garrisons from a very distant perspective. She felt that they were all good people, different from the countless other people in this world, and their ideological awareness had reached a utopian realm. But that's all. Only after being so close to the garrisons in her life did Huami realize that she had actually witnessed these garrisons fighting one after another, trying to stop a chariot in the face of natural disasters and man-made calamities. The only feeling in her heart was that she couldn't bear it. Especially when I saw Lu Xingyuan, his legs could no longer grow. But Lu Xingyuan still shook his head. He didn't want to listen to Huami's advice, nor did he want to sit idle. Sister-in-law, I want to do something. If I do more, my garrison brothers will have to do less. Someone has to do these things. It was as if he was going to rescue the garrison commander of City A. In fact, anyone could guess that perhaps the garrison commander of City A had met with an accident. After all, Chun, who is so cruel. Chun, whose evil has never been concealed. But someone has to make sure of this. It's like when an earthquake strikes and the house collapses. Someone has to find the commander in the ruins to make sure they have lost command. In the pouring rain, someone has to travel thousands of miles to see if there is still a way forward. In such a huge Xiangqing, there must be a garrison captain to guard the city. Someone has to find an answer to whether the A city garrison commander who fell into Chun whose hands is alive or dead. If Lu Xingyuan doesn't go, he will go to another garrison. Huami's fox eyes were a little warm. She stood beside Lu Xingyuan and asked, So, what do you want to do? He pointed to the gate of Xiangqing City. I heard from the brothers that they were lurking outside the city, and following the clues, they discovered a huge red light district. Lu Xingyuan wants to join the operation to shut down the red light district. Huami thought for a while, then took out a pair of prosthetic limbs from behind. This was sent to Xiangqing by Chuanzi's convoy. I don't know how many people he had to go through to get this. I have no objection if you want to go outside the city. Just install this first. It is unstoppable. These garrisons are born like the source of light, and no one can stop them from shining brightly. In this case, it would be better to give them more, so that it would be more convenient for them to do things. Lu Xingyuan took the prosthetic limb from Huami's hand and looked at her with gratitude. Thank you, sister-in-law. Huami handed over a 220 milliliters mineral water bottle filled with sparkling liquid. Facing Lu Xingyuan's doubts, Huami explained, This is a new energy drink developed by my factory. I named it Energy Drops. It's similar to the Black Bowl before the disaster. If you feel tired, take a sip. The director of the water plant has been busy renovating the factory recently. Most of the preparations have been completed, and they can officially start work after Huijing repairs the roof of the factory. So everyone knows that Huami has a water plant, but no one knows what it does specifically, whether it produces mineral water or beverages. Anyway, this factory is not for sale to the outside world. Seeing Lu Xingyuan thanking her and taking the bottle of energy drops, Huami paused and told Lu Xingyuan again, Really, when you feel tired, just take a sip. This drink is quite strong. X10 000 energy light to synthesize an energy water drop the size of a sesame seed. To synthesize 220 milliliters, Huami consumed countless energy light, so Lu Xingyuan just took a sip, just enough to wet his lips. Seeing that Lu Xingyuan agreed obediently, Huami left with peace of mind. She had to hurry back to the Lotus Xingxing supermarket to settle the 12 square meters of black land she had just acquired. As a result, when she was looking for seeds in the level 20 number 2 warehouse, she found that all the seeds in her warehouse had been planted. Except for ugly orange, sugar orange, rock sugar orange, baba orange, mandarin orange, emperor orange, honey sweet orange, navel orange, kumquat, sweetheart pomelo, rock sugar pomelo, and pomelo. Because there were too many local tangerines before, Huami deliberately did not plant tangerines, grapefruits, and oranges for storage. So today, apart from these, there are no other seeds to plant. She was very helpless, so she called Sichuan again and asked him to find seeds for her. Ikuo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Sister Hua, this is something you can only hope for. You know it's raining everywhere right now. It's impossible to preserve seeds in such humid weather. The conditions do not allow it, Sister Hua. The storage conditions for seeds are limited. In this humid weather where it is difficult to breathe without a respirator and they are out of sight all day long, even seeds with the best storage conditions will have few that can germinate. Huami thought it made sense, but she was not the kind of person who would give up easily. Then you can hang a sign for me at the material wholesale point at the gate of City B and buy seedlings at a high price. I want all kinds of seedlings. She doesn't care whether they are fruit seeds or Chinese medicinal herb seeds. As long as they can be planted, it's fine. After hanging up the phone with Sichuan, Huami planted the last few tangerine, grapefruit, and orange seedlings in her 12 square meters of black soil. Just right, all 12 square meters of black soil are full. Immediately afterwards, Huami called Yu Mengmeng again and asked her to help her put up an advertisement in the RV supermarket and buy unlimited seedlings at a high price. You can also exchange seedlings for supplies. Then Huami decided to draw a lottery. She now had 12 chances to draw a lottery, but that was not enough. She decided to upgrade everything that needed to be upgraded so that she could have more chances to draw a good thing in one go. Level 16 Factory. Life-saving hammer, multifunction whistle limited production, semi-finished sauerkraut fish X70, 000, chocolate cake X60, 000, semi-finished braised lion's head X50, 000, semi-finished braised sparrows X40, 000, semi-finished pizza X30, 000, semi-finished crispy pork X20, 000, semi-finished Orleans roast chicken X10, 000, semi-finished preserved vegetable braised pork X5, 000, semi-finished ginseng black chicken soup X2, 500, semi-finished pepper pork belly chicken X1000, ham. Sausage X500, rice X250 synthetic production, energy water droplet X1, requires, energy light group consumption X10,000, agree cancel when a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X13. This level 16 factory can produce so many things that many of the fixed production materials have been squeezed out of sight. What appeared in front of Huami were only 6 dots left in the fixed production category, except for the 2 new fixed production materials. Click to enter the next level page, where the previous fixed production materials will appear. In order to consume the energy bar of the level 16 factory, it is easier to level up the recycling bin. Huami worked as fiercely as a tiger and produced all the limited production materials in one go. Unlock the small garbage recycling station level 2, get 2 sweeping robots and 2 trash cans when a lucky draw X1 remaining lucky draws X15. Huami divided the 2 sweeping robots and placed one on the ground to clean the inside and outside of the Lotus Xingxing supermarket. One was placed in the underground garage under the Lotus Xingxing supermarket, and it was allowed to eat the small garbage in the basement. They are very smart and can automatically distinguish between garbage and supplies, and will not eat supplies indiscriminately. During this period of time, Huami's 3-story underground garage has been bustling with cars and people hauling supplies every day, and it is inevitable that a lot of mud, stagnant water, and various small garbage have been brought in. Huami doesn't have a cleaning staff to clean for her. Over time, even with the tarpaulin absorbing moisture from the air, the water accumulated into puddles. Especially the entrance of the underground garage is dirty, messy, and wet. If you don't clean it, it will become dirtier and slippery and sticky. If you walk on it carelessly, you will fall. After releasing the robot, Huami walked to the edge of the wall and gave 2 trash cans to the migrant workers who were building a higher wall. She didn't say anything else, just asked the workers to pay attention to hygiene and put garbage in the trash can and not throw it around randomly. The migrant workers were also given a pile of local grapefruits, which was 2 meters high. Amid the workers' thanks, Huami returned to the Lotus Xingxing supermarket, washed her hands, rubbed them, and put her hands together in a superstitious gesture. Bless me, I want seeds and weapons. Bless me, bless me. Here we go. Get milk lollipop x10000000. Get hand torn bread x10000000. Get wang xiaoji x10000000. Get beer x10000000. Get solid alcohol x10000000. Get storage box x10000000. Obtain silver charcoal unit. Gene. X1 million. Get coral fleece 4-piece set x10000000. Get cashmere thermal underwear 1 size x10000000. Get toothpaste gum swelling reduction x10000000. Get Gang Gang Little Champion synchronized calligraphy copybook x10000000. Get badminton rackets. 1 pair gives 3 badminton. X1 million. Get eucalyptus tree. X10000000. Get horticultural organic fertilizer 20g/bag x10000000. Get Gatling x10000000. Unlock storage level 22 space 22 by 2. Win a lucky draw x1 remaining lucky draw x1. Unlock storage level 23 space 23 by 2. When a lucky draw x1 remaining lucky draws x2, a long list of supplies was displayed. Because too many supplies were drawn out this time, Huami's storage was expanded by 2 levels. She opened the level 23 number 1 warehouse and looked at everything one by one. She immediately became happy. Although she didn't get the seed this time, she drew Gatlin.
Ha ha ha.
Huami couldn't help but laugh 3 times towards the sky, then took out a cashmere thermal underwear, 1 size fits all, and took a look. This thermal underwear is elastic, and the elasticity is very good. It can be worn by petite people as well as fat people. She immediately informed Chao Feng, Tang Yu, Fang Yuqi, Qi Chuan, Yi Rong, Yang Honglin, and the factory director in her small group, and asked them to send someone to Xiangqing's underground garage to get cashmere thermal underwear. Yi Rong, I also want to say that the weather is getting colder and colder. A drop of rain falling into your neck can keep you cold for 24 hours. Ikegawa, it's quite cold, and it's raining. The coldness in this weather penetrates directly into one's bones. The words were not exaggerated at all. To Huami, Yi Rong and Qi Chuan's feelings were not exaggerated enough. When the cold wave comes, the whole world will be filled with ice sculptures. That would be truly exaggerated. Huami, we will first consume the thermal underwear internally to satisfy our own needs, and then sell it to the outside world. There are not many sets in total. Huami, when the weather gets cold, I think 1 piece of thermal underwear won't be enough for each person. We'll give out 5 pieces to each person, and they can wear more thermal underwear when it gets cold. The quality of my underwear is pretty good, and it's also pretty elastic. Therefore, it shouldn't be a big problem to put them on 1 by 1. The point is that the weather is getting colder and colder, and ordinary warm clothes in the south really can't hold up. Huami, I also got some silver charcoal and solid alcohol. The garrison will be standing guard outside, so you can bring some charcoal over and make a fire outside. Several garrisons in the small group responded, and Chao Feng suddenly asked, Chao Feng, Sister Hua, should we invite the boss to join our group? Huami, why are you pulling him? Are you going to listen to his lecture?
No.
Chao Feng. The several garrisons in the small group didn't know what to say. It was right that Sister Hua had married their boss, right? Why didn't they bring their boss along to play? Yi Rong was holding a cell phone, laughing on the other end of the line. Then she looked up and saw Lu Xingyuan standing up and walking out. She was stunned and quickly sent a message to Huami, Yi Rong. Captain Lu stood up and went outside Xiangqing. Huami, it's okay. I'll go with you secretly. During this time, ask Dafu and Xiaofu to collect more cold weather equipment. Huami, oh right, I have some Gang Gang Xiao Zhuangyuan synchronous calligraphy copybooks here. Give Dafu and Xiaofu 100 copies each, so that they can practice calligraphy when they have nothing to do. Although there is no school now, they can't fall behind in their studies. So, Is it true that one person has 100 copies of calligraphy? Yi Rong was stunned when she saw Hua Mi's last text message. Hua Mi, on the other hand, simply dressed herself up, changed into cashmere thermal underwear, and put on a black coral fleece maternity suit on the outside, and arrived at the gate of Xiangqing. She had promised Gong Yi that she would help take care of Lu Xingyuan, and this was something she could not disobey. At the gate of Xiangqing, the garrison in charge of logistics had already pulled silver charcoal from Hua Mi's underground garage and started burning a charcoal basin in the watchtower for the garrison on duty. This basin of charcoal arrived at a very timely moment. In the cold and damp weather, the garrison's changing shifts could take off their wet clothes and dry them over the large charcoal basin. Outside the watchtower, a small garrison was gathering, preparing to attack a small colored den. Chao Feng is considering who to let lead the team. Lu Xingyuan trotted over, stood up straight, and saluted. Captain Chao, Lu Xingyuan, the captain of the 1st Garrison Team in City A, requests to go into battle. Everyone was stunned and turned to look over. Chao Feng's eyes fell on Lu Xingyuan's knees. He pursed his lips and said nothing. Lu Xingyuan came over and said generously, "The prosthetic limbs Sister Hua gave me are pretty good. They're made of steel, and it hurts when I kick people with them." This made Chao Feng laugh. He raised his hand and patted Lu Xingyuan on the shoulder. "It's good that you can stand up. Then you lead the team. I can't leave Xiangqing either. Both are garrison captains. In terms of rank, Chao Feng and Lu Xingyuan are the same. There is no question of who arranges whom. If Lu Xingyuan wants to go, he just needs to tell Chao Feng. There is no doubt about the captain's ability. Anyone who can become a captain must at least be good at fighting." Chao Feng let him do it. He knew that Lu Xingyuan needed to do something to prove the value of his existence. Hua Mi was wearing a low-key large raincoat made of waterproof oilcloth and standing far away from Lu Xingyuan and Chao Feng, standing with a group of survivors. In the pouring rain, a handsome and gentle man stopped Qin Xiaolan and talked to her. They looked together at the survivors who were coming and going at the gate of Xiangqing. Ma Ziyuan said, "Xiaolan, ask them, who among them hasn't lost a loved one? This is how the world is, with separation and death happening every day. Don't dwell on this all the time. Everyone has to work hard to survive. Let's not waste our time on this." Hua Mi, who happened to be standing not far from the two men, nodded, thinking that this made sense. "Handsome guy is on the right track." Qin Xiaolan said, "But that's because I didn't have any news about my brother before. Now Fong Xian said she has some clues, so I'm going to find her." Hua Mi, who was not far from Fong Xian, was stunned. Why was it Fong Xian again? How could Fong Xian know that she killed Qin Ziren? So Hua Mi pricked up her ears and listened carefully, but the two men had already walked far away, and it seemed that they were running out of the city. Because she had to look after Lu Xingyuan, Hua Mi couldn't chase after them and could only watch their backs as they left. Why does she feel that anyone who has anything to do with Fong Xian will have a bad ending? Hua Mi didn't have time to think too much at this moment, because Lu Xingyuan, along with 4 garrisons, had already left the watchtower in plain clothes. Hua Mi followed from a distance, and she had no intention of interfering with Lu Xingyuan's mission. It's because the energy drop is in Lu Xingyuan's body, and she doesn't know when it will lose its effect. No one knew what that 220 milliliters bottle of energy water drops would bring to Lu Xingyuan, so Hua Mi followed Lu Xingyuan and others, so that she can help in time. It is said that they investigated for a long time this time and found a small adult love den right at the gate of Xiangqing City. That was the result of the 2 garrisons that Gong Yi had sent last time to follow Monkey Brother. They spent a long time squatting at the spot and finally figured it out. In fact, small color dens like this were not uncommon in the end of the world in the previous life. At first, everyone thought it was shameful and immoral. But as time goes by, as long as women can survive, using themselves as capital can be considered a way to make a living. No one will think that this is a dirty business anymore. As long as it allows you to survive and the children around you to have something to eat, this business is not dirty. Of course, that only applies to the survivors, who really have no way to make a living. The disaster has only been going on for more than 3 months now, People still have savings, and survivors can still find hard labor jobs in Xiangqing. Those who don't do hard labor can go wholesale supplies, or search for supplies in the ruins and set up a stall. If you really don't want to do either of them, you can also help Huami search for seedlings and make money. Huami said that as long as they were seedlings, she would buy them at a high price. Why can't I think of a way to survive? Why do I have to do this to live well? No woman likes to be treated like this by a man, especially women of the first generation who still have a sense of propriety and honor in their hearts. If they appear in an adult love den, it is mostly because they are forced. Huami followed Lu Xingyuan and other garrisons from a distance and came to the outside of a semi-abandoned self-built villa. She leaned leisurely on a dry spot, curled up in her coral fleece maternity dress, waiting for movement inside. Don't make too much noise. Less than a minute after Lu Xingyuan led his men in, several street thugs flew out from various angles of the small building. Some flew out of the window, some flew out of the front door, and some flew from the second floor over the balcony and then fell down. What horrible thing happened in there? Huami was curious for a moment and waited until all the scoundrels in the building had left before she stepped into the building. Lu Xingyuan was grabbing the chains on the women's hands and breaking them with his bare hands. He paused what he was doing, and together with the other 4 guards who were looking for the key to unlock the door, they turned their heads and looked at Huami outside the door in surprise. "Sister-in-law, why are you here? Please stop looking." Lu Xingyuan stood up straight and stood in front of Huami. "The situation here is too tragic. Sister Hua is a pregnant woman, and she really shouldn't watch these dark things." Huami, however, had a familiar expression on her face and glanced around the building. These street thugs are so bold that they set up such a hideout right under the noses of the garrison. At first she thought it was a small, colorful tent. It's like the men at home, such as father, brother, and husband, forcing their own women into prostitution. After all, there is still order in Xiangqing. It has been less than 4 months since the earthquake. But looking at the situation here now, it should have developed to a certain scale. There are more than a dozen women here, and quite a few street urchins have flown away. If this is a color den, it would be better to say that it is more like a transit station. Gather the women and prepare to transport them to a transit point somewhere. Huami frowned slightly. Things were worse than she had imagined. At this moment, a woman suddenly jumped out from among the women, shouting loudly, "Huami, you beast! You have no heart. You are just a beast. We all believed in you. You said you would introduce us to good jobs, but you tricked us into doing this. You are a beast." The first woman who rushed over was blocked by Lu Xingyuan's quick eyes and hands. Behind him, the expression on Huami's face became more and more stern. Her fox eyes were as cold as a knife as she looked at the women in the room who were cursing and crying. "If you don't explain yourself clearly today, I'll kill you." I got angry. When did she say she would introduce jobs to these women? Is she just bored? She has so many things to do. Why would she do this? The garrison on the side also felt that the situation was strange. Lu Xingyuan winked at the garrison, and they sent 2 garrisons out to persuade Huami to the side. Lu Xingyuan, along with 2 other garrisons, questioned the dozen or so women one by one. In less than half an hour, everything was clear. In fact, Huami knew all these women. No, it should be said that they all knew Huami. Some of them were her high school or junior high school classmates from her hometown, and some were her college classmates, but Huami just didn't remember them. And they were all deceived here by Fong Exine using the name of Huami. Not every woman is single and lives in this precarious world. At least these women who were deceived by Fong Exine all have families. But Fong Exine is Huami's cousin, and everyone knows how good Huami was to Fong Exine back then. It's no secret that Huami has a good relationship with the garrison. So Fong Exine came forward and said that Huami could find jobs for them that would make their work easy and earn them a lot of money, without having to set up stalls or do hard labor like clearing highways and moving bricks. The working environment is also comfortable, decent, safe, and stable. In such a rotten world, who wouldn't be tempted? These women were moved, and their families were also moved. Word spread quickly, and almost everyone who knew Fong Xian came to ask Fong Xian to find them jobs. This is also the reason why Fong Xian was able to find so many good-looking women in a very short period of time, and why he was willing and his family was willing not to cause trouble. Don't you have brains? Huami was blocked by 2 guards and was so angry that she yelled at those women. The work is easy, the environment is good, the income is high, and it is stable, safe, and respectable. I want this job too. Please try to find me such a job. Even she is now an unemployed vagrant, tossing around in the wind and rain every day. She earns a lot, but is it safe? You have earned your own life. When something good happens, you should first think about why this pie has fallen on your head. The women in the room cried for a while, and then started arguing. Fong Xian is your cousin. You said she lied to us, and we said you lied to us. Who knows what's going on between you and your cousin? That's right. Your cousin is using your name to recruit people everywhere. Do you dare to say that you have no responsibility? If we weren't concerned about your status and your relationship with the garrison, we wouldn't be so easily deceived. Do you think we are the only ones who have been deceived? Who doesn't want a stable and good job now? There are countless beautiful women who rush to Fong Xian because of your name. They talked at once, full of dissatisfaction and self-pity for what had happened to them after being cheated. Huami sneered when she heard this. You guys are greedy for rewards you didn't put in and you want to blame it on me?
Dream on.
She didn't care. It was already great enough that she could rescue these women from the tiger's mouth. Believe it or not, in other cities, once a woman falls into prostitution, the possibility of finding her back is slim. However, this witch Fong Xian really made Huami look at her in a new light. After not seeing her for many days, Fong Xian has evolved from a white lotus into a black-hearted, rotten, poisonous lotus. Her behavior had seriously disgusted Huami. Huami turned around and said to Lu Xingyuan, "Did your boss Gong tell you what you were going to do with those street urchins after you caught them?" Lu Xingyuan looked serious. Commander Gong said that they should be detained together and executed publicly. Okay then, you keep busy here. I'll go and kill those 2 people. As she spoke, Huami picked up a conscious kid on the ground and asked him to take her to find Fong Xian and her daughter. I'm just a little pony, I don't know anything, Sister Hua. The skinny street urchin, wearing only a pair of shorts, was kicked on the back by Huami. He was kicked to the ground, but he didn't dare stop. Once he stopped, the woman behind him would be like a devil, punching and kicking him. The street slicker got up and staggered forward, shivering from the cold. The cold rain hit him, and he burst into tears. I was wrong, I was really wrong. I didn't mean to do it. I won't dare to do it again next time. Please let me go, Sister Hua. He had never thought that this business would be so risky. In fact, he just wanted to make a little more money. The streets are full of people, and the people around him are all street urchins. He is just influenced by the people around him. Others pull him to do it, and he just makes some money. Huami drove the street urchins forward expressionlessly. What did you mean by not doing it on purpose? What did you mean by letting you go? You've made the wrong decision in life. Do you think you'll have a chance to start over again? She believes that many people choose to be lazy and take shortcuts because of ignorance and not knowing the seriousness of the problem. But so what? If you do something that hurts others, can you just admit your mistakes and apologize? Some mistakes are acceptable, but with some, committing them will result in death. The skinny street kid brought Huami to the front of Fong Huai and Fong Xian's tent. He was frozen in the cold rain, his whole body was pale, and he was shivering. Here, this is Fong Huai's tent. He, his daughter, might have followed Brother Monkey to Brother Fan's place. Brother Fan? Huami glanced at the skinny guy and heard a familiar name, Brother Fan. The boss behind Brother Fan is Chun Hu. So in this life, the big chicken head brother is actually in Xiangqing? Huami clenched the kitchen knife in her hand and pointed it at the skinny street kid. Wait here for me. If you dare to run, I will chop you to death. Fong Huai's tent was among a group of tents some distance away from the city gate. The ground was muddy and the rain fell, slowly sliding into the ditch on the side. Because the weather was cold, there were no idle people strolling around in the open space. Some people in several large tents nearby heard a slight noise, but no one came out to see. Huami ignored the guy who was almost freezing to death. She used a kitchen knife to pry open the curtain of Feng Huai's tent, and a foul smell filled the air. Huami can't smell. She's wearing a respirator. She saw that the light in the tent was dark and Feng Huai was lying on the wet bed, incontinent, with his skinny chest rising and falling slightly. His body was covered with wounds from the beating caused by Monkey Brother last time, and they have not healed yet, because he had no money to buy medicine or food. I don't even have the energy to go out and look for help.
Fang Xin.
Feng Huai lay on the bed, the cold air penetrating into his bones. With his cloudy eyes, he only saw a figure coming in, and he thought it was his daughter who came back.
Give me something to eat. Fang Xin.
I'm so cold in such cold weather. Feng Huai was still wearing a thin sweater. How could he not be cold? It seemed that Feng Xian had not taken care of her father for a long time. Huami stood in the wet tent with indifference, looking down at Feng Huai who was lying on the bedsheet and had entered the countdown of his death. The living conditions here are terrible. It's Ami. Feng Huai finally saw something clearly. He raised his dry hand and wanted to pull Huami's hand, but he couldn't reach it. He took a few quick breaths and said with a smile, Ami, uncle. Before he finished speaking, Feng Huai slowly closed his eyes, and his dry hands dropped heavily. He is dead. No one knows what Feng Huai wanted to say in the end. Huami didn't care either. She stood beside Feng Huai's body for a while, and said with some disgust, What on earth have you done in your life? In Huami's memory, Feng Huai had always lived in a daze when he was young. Every day he is either in the casino or on his way to the casino. When Feng's mother had to go to work, Feng Xian pushed the responsibility to Huami, and Feng Huai just stood aside. In Huami's distant memories, Feng Huai and his mother were always quarreling. For money, for life, for any trivial matter, the Feng family would quarrel to great lengths. So, what have you done in your life that benefited others and yourself? Huami asked the corpse on the ground again. She bent down slightly and looked at Feng Huai's open eyes. It's better to make use of your remaining energy after death. She put Feng Huai's body into the recycling bin and converted it into an energy light ball. When I walked out of the tent, the guy outside had already fallen to the ground, his body was pale, and he had frozen to death outside the tent. Huami also put the body of the street urchin into the recycling bin. This is actually quite good. If the bodies are left where they are, no one will come to collect them for a long time. Because the crematorium in Xiangqing would not take the initiative to collect corpses, the garrison would send the bodies of those in disasters to the crematorium in the past. But now that the earthquakes have stopped, the garrison is busier than before, and the survivors can only rely on themselves to send their dead relatives to the crematorium. People like Feng Huai and Jieliuzi had no one to care about their life or death when they were alive. Will there be anyone to send them off after they die? The most we can do is to throw their bodies to a farther place so as not to interfere with the group life of the survivors. In such cold weather, the body will have to wait until the ice melts before it can rot. During this period, they might even mutate and become walking corpses, which are commonly known as zombies. Huami's move also relieved some of the pressure on the crematorium. She walked for a while in the icy rain and called Lu Xingyuan. Feng Huai is dead. It seems Feng Xian hasn't returned to her tent for many days. Ask those street urchins where they plan to send those women. Lu Xingyuan agreed immediately, then said hesitantly, Sister Hua, why don't you go back to Xiangqing? It's too chaotic outside. The garrison in City A has been incorporated into Gong Yi's command. Lu Xingyuan heard the garrisons around him call Huami Sister Hua, so he followed the local customs and called her that. Considering that Sister Hua is pregnant, it is really inconvenient for her to run around outside in such a cold weather. If anything happens to the children or adults, Lu Xingyuan's life will not be enough to compensate Boss Gong. Huami smiled and said, It's okay. I'm not fighting. I'm just following you. Captain Lu, you see, I didn't do anything, but my reputation has been ruined by Feng Xian. I will settle the score with her no matter what. If you don't let me follow you, I'll go looking for it secretly by myself, which will be even more dangerous. On the other end of the phone, Lu Xingyuan scratched his short hair and said helplessly, I have to ask Commander Gong about this matter. Gong Yi would definitely not agree. Not only did he not agree, but as expected, he also called Hua Mi. He asked angrily on the other end of the phone, Don't you know what your situation is? Why are you wandering around outside? Lu Xingyuan is going to fight to the death. Why are you joining in the fun? Hua Mi responded very obediently, Okay, I'll go back. I'll go back right away. Aren't you busy? Have you found Xinhu? Without. Gong Yi stood in the industrial park outside of City A and said to Hua Mi, But I found enough supplies for an entire industrial park. As Chen, who left City A, all the survivors in the industrial park left. Tens of thousands of survivors took away all the food and daily necessities in the industrial park. According to their walking routes, most of them went towards City B, and some went towards Xiangqing. So Chen, who should be in City B or Xiangqing. Gong Yi also said, although the survivors of the industrial park took away the living supplies of the industrial park, there are still a lot of industrial supplies left here. For example, a large amount of wool, rags, cement, adhesives, steel, and parts of prefabricated houses. When Hua Mi heard this, her eyes lit up. Prefabricated houses? Sure. Drag them to Xiangqing, find a piece of land to build them, and then rent them out. Isn't this better than those survivors living in tents? She said to Gong Yi, If you don't let me go out and have fun, you could just transport the supplies here manually and use the teleportation ticket. Xiangqing, Watchtower teleportation tickets that she gave to Gong Yi last time should not have been used up yet. It doesn't matter if they are used up. Tang Yu's position is close to Gong Yi, and the garrison guarding the material warehouse in City B also has teleportation tickets. The teleportation ticket can be used to teleport people and supplies, but I don't know how much supplies it can carry. Anyway, Gong Yi can't find Xinhu now, so he might as well send it back first. Gong Yi agreed to transport the supplies back, but he did not agree to teleport back to Xiangqing himself. Instead, he asked Tang Yu to send someone to bring the supplies back to Xiangqing. Hua Mi called Hu Jing and asked him to go to the Xiangqing Watchtower teleportation point, receive all the supplies, and pile them up in the underground garage of Lianhua Xingxing. Miss Hua, where are you going? Hu Jing asked on the phone. On the other end, Hua Mi chuckled. I'm just relaxing outside. The weather is just right. Just as she finished her words, a thunder passed over her head, tearing apart the thick black clouds, and the rain fell even more heavily. People were trembling all around. It's snowing particles. Hua Mi looked up and saw tiny snow particles hitting the tip of her nose. It was like thunder and snow. What is God planning to do? She sighed and continued to look for Lu Xingyuan. As for what she promised Gong Yi, she didn't remember what she promised. The garrison in Xiangqing has already locked on to several similar color transfer stations. In each transfer station, there are more than a dozen beautiful young women locked up and guarded by a few street urchins. This kind of organization with clear division of labor can be considered strict. These women will not pick up customers on the outskirts of Xiangqing. They will definitely be transported to a unified place. At this time, facing the tiny snow particles, Hua Mi received a call from the contractor. Miss Hua, we found a woman soliciting business on the dredging section of the Xiang A Expressway. They came to the construction site in 2s and 3s and flirted with the workers who were clearing the highway. They are all full of vigor and vitality, and those who work under Hua Mi have a lot of supplies. Just a few dozen dollars and 2 or 3 fruits can make the place look more colorful, and many people are eager to try it. It seriously affected the progress of the project. The contractor asked Hua Mi what to do next. Hua Mi thought without hesitation. Okay, I'll go take a look. Now a batch of wool, rags, and mobile cabins have arrived at the foot of the watchtower. Please arrange for everyone to be transported to the toll station on the Hunan A Expressway. The prefabricated house must be erected as soon as possible. It must be erected as quickly as possible. The contractor agreed immediately, dropped all the work in his hands, called Qi Chuan and Hu Jing, and asked them to dispatch people to receive the supplies from Xiangqing Watchtower. Don't ask why so many supplies suddenly appeared under the watchtower. The problem is that the light show is too bright, and I can't see it clearly. While talking to the contractor, Huami's body was like a bird flying over the overturned mountains and rivers. Although she had a slightly protruding belly, her speed was not at all clumsy compared to when she was only 1 or 2 months pregnant. She was getting faster and lighter. In less than an hour, Huami arrived at the Hunan A Expressway. At this time, Lu Xingyuan, still leading the 4 garrisons, was picking off the small dens of colors at the gate of Xiangqing one by one. He and Gong Yi both thought that they had persuaded Sister Hua to stop the dredging work on the Xiang A Expressway. Without dredging the road, cars could not pass through, and the materials in the industrial park could only be brought back by the garrison with teleportation tickets. In fact, one person can't carry much supplies with him when teleporting. So, after returning to Xiangqing, the garrison had to walk to the industrial park again, continue to tear up the teleportation tickets, and manually bring the goods back to Xiangqing. Compared to driving there, the round-trip time is not much saved. Because the garrison was teleported to Xiangqing, they had to walk back again, repeating the cycle over and over again. Similarly, the survivors who took this road had no way of having a smoother road to walk on, and could only cross mountains and ridges and take small roads with their families. By the time Huami arrived at Hunan A Expressway, her workers had already stopped working for several hours. A large group of men were surrounding the 7 or 8 women in the snow, pointing, talking, and flirting with them. The 7 or 8 women, all wearing short skirts or long skirts, exposing their arms, thighs, and deep verses, were flirting with the men. Several workers had already negotiated the price with the women and were walking towards the bus nearby. The conditions for firing are quite poor. Because it was raining and there were mud, rocks, and trees on the road, they had other work to do after clearing the highway, so they didn't build a place for themselves to rest. Only a few buses drove over and all the seats in the buses were removed, using them as a place for them to rest. Huami flew up and landed on the roof of the bus with a thump.
Just like a bird.
The worker, who was rubbing the shivering woman and was about to get on the bus to do his work, looked up and saw a woman in a raincoat standing upright on the roof of the bus. The headlights erected in the distance fell on the woman, whose raincoat was already covered with a thin layer of snow particles. As she moved, snow particles fell down. Who is this? Not everyone is lucky enough to see Huami. Most people here were recruited by the contractor and Hu Jing. They had heard of Huami's name, but had never seen what Huami looked like in person. Someone looked up and shouted to Huami, "Hey, are you here to sell too? Sell your mother." Huami lowered her eyes and glanced at the dredging project that had been suspended. Looking at the worker who was asking the question, Huami said angrily, "You took my money and supplies, but instead of working properly, you just made these things for me. If you dare to touch these women today, you can quit your job." The workers were quiet for a moment, and several of them silently withdrew their hands from touching the witch. But there are also a few who are so bold that they are almost flying in the face of danger.
Who are you?
If you want to sell, name a price. If not, get out. You want to fire us? Haha, do you have the guts to do that? We didn't steal or rob. We both agreed to this. What's it to you? There are always people who like to be brainless idiots. Huami looked coldly at the disobedient workers. My name is Huami. When you, the contractor, and Hu Jing see me, you have to call me Andy. The wages you receive every day, as well as the food and drinks you eat, are all provided by me. When her name was called out, the scene was dead silent, with only the sound of snowflakes hitting the ground. Most of the workers took a few steps back quietly, moving away from the witches around them. Clearly distinguished. They don't want to lose their current job. But there are still some who don't believe in it. You told us to get out? You said you are Huami, so you are Huami? We use our hard-earned money and supplies for entertainment. It's none of your business, right? Even if you are Huami, you can't control us. You are not our wife. Why do you care about how many witches we have? Now Huami is the only one here, and she has no evidence to prove that she is really Huami. Moreover, the wages and supplies that Huami had given them before were enough for them to live a comfortable life with their families in this world.
It's impossible to ask them to spit it out now.
Why should we ask them not to have contact with witches? They worked for Huami, but they were not her long-term employees, nor did they sell their bodies to Huami. She gave them money and supplies, and they just had to get the job done. As for the rest, does Huami have any right to care? This is not a question of whether one has brains or not. This is their human rights and their freedom. Huami uttered a ha, and her eyes fell on the open space, where there were a few witches who were thinly dressed and shivering with cold. There were traces of cheap makeup on their faces. No matter how beautifully they dressed up, they would still huddle up in such cold weather when doing the adult love trade. Huami jumped off the roof of the bus and looked at the man in front of her who was hugging the witch and refused to let go. The man was very brave. He reached out to touch Huami's face with an indecent smile on his face. You just jumped down like that.
Let me see what our Miss Hua looks like.
You're just a woman. What are you afraid of? Huami pulled out a steel bar from the back of her raincoat and hit the man's hand with it. I don't like to preach. If you insist on your freedom, then don't work under me. I like to keep my word and don't like others taking my money and supplies and asking me for more. You should understand that in this world, it's not that I have to beg you to work for me, but you beg me to give you a way out. Then, everything must be done according to my rules and preferences. You are not allowed to do anything I forbid you to do. Don't like it? If you don't like it, just go away. Every time she said something, she would hit the man with a steel bar. Where can you find workers? If you go out and call now, there will be a lot of people who want to join the infrastructure construction team. On a snowy night, the man who wanted to touch Huami was knocked to the ground by Huami. No worker around dared to say a word. Now they believe it. There is no other woman as fierce as Sister Hua. Huami put away the steel bars, pointed at the man she had knocked to the ground, and told the other workers, "Find 2 people and throw him away." He pointed at the 7 or 8 thinly dressed women in the open space and said, "Catch them all, lock them up and educate them, and make them recite the 8 honors and 8 shames." A group of men rushed up again and grabbed all the women in the open space. This time they did not dare to touch them randomly. They just grabbed one arm each to avoid suspicion. I could only hear those women, shivering and twisting their bodies in the snow, shouting, "Let us go. We didn't do anything. Why are you locking us up? You have interrupted the progress of my project." Huami waved her hand and told the workers, "Send them to the toll booth, and the rest of you can continue working. If you stop working, your wages and supplies will be deducted." It just so happened that Gong Yi found a large amount of wool, scraps of cloth, and mobile houses in the industrial park left by Chen Hu. The contractor did a good job. Although he didn't go to the scene, he had someone bring the supplies over. It is very easy to put up a prefabricated house. If there are enough people, it can be put up in a short time. Look, there is also a place for witches here. After reciting the 8 honors and 8 shames, they can sew the scraps of cloth together and stuff wool inside. Isn't a woolen coat complete? If the women of the courtesans make a few more woolen coats, Huami won't have to distribute thermal underwear to the infrastructure team. Thinking of this, Huami suddenly became very motivated and told the workers, "My people must follow the garrison in everything. It is strictly forbidden to have affairs. If you want women, you must have a serious relationship with them. If you have adult love with these women, aren't you afraid that you'll be looked down upon by the garrison? There is no way around it. The moral standards of the garrison are too high. Prostitution is strictly prohibited, and it has been written into the garrison rules. If the people who work for Huami have low moral standards and go to brothels as soon as they get off work, they will give the garrison a bad impression and will be despised by them. The key is that it also affects the progress of the project." The workers responded. Most of them were very obedient, and those who were not convinced did not dare to show it in person. If you really go against this woman, not only will you lose your job, but you will also be beaten by her. Huami heard them say behind their backs, "If there are any more women standing on the street, seize them all and send them to the toll booth. For every woman you send, I'll give you 2,000 yuan." Thinking about the thick coat, Huami felt that it would be a good idea to capture a few more witches to recite the 8 honors and 8 shames. After giving instructions to the workers, she turned around and walked towards the toll booth. The supplies here have been brought here by the contractor, and the mobile houses have been almost built on an open space with a lot of traffic. From inside came the voices of witches reciting the 8 honors and 8 shames. Also standing outside was Yang Honglin, who was wearing a police uniform. Huami was surprised when she saw Yang Honglin. "Why are you here?" Chuanzi said that there are people here who need to be educated, so he dragged me over to see. Yang Honglin was carrying an AK-47 on his back. He didn't bring many policemen with him this time, but those who came were all veteran police officers. As he was talking, an old policeman came with a stack of white paper and a pen. "The paper and pen are ready. Let them finish writing their self-reviews, and then we can assign them tasks. If you are caught standing on the street, and it is against public morals, you will have to write a letter of apology." Huami stood at the window and took a look. The women inside were all frozen purple. She said to Yang Honglin, "Let them sew some thick woolen coats for themselves first." As they were talking, the workers who were working on the dredging project ahead came over and captured a few witches who were selling themselves and brought them over. As soon as they saw Huami, they all looked flattering. "Miss Hua, look, we caught a few more." "Okay, I'll give you money, 2,000 per woman." Huami was not vague either. She withdrew a stack of brand new cash from the Apocalypse supermarket cashier system and counted the money for the workers on the spot. They would give 2,000 yuan to each woman they caught, and the workers who came to give the women away could divide the money among themselves. The workers were very happy, holding the cash in their hands, saying, "There seem to be more women ahead. We'll catch a few more and send them to you later." Huami nodded and reminded, "Just don't delay the progress of the project." After handing out the money, Huami frowned slightly and said to Yang Honglin, "Why are there so many witches on the street? It means there is a huge hideout here." Yang Honglin is an old policeman and is more sensitive to this kind of thing than anyone else. He whispered to the policemen around him to record their statements one by one. He turned his head and looked at the women in the room who were writing self-criticisms and said to Huami, "In fact, they are just pitiful people. If they are not locked up, they will still go down this path after they are released. Since there is a way to survive in reality, who would be willing to do this? Once they walk out of here, believe it or not only will the jackets they sew themselves be stripped off, but they will also be sent to be witches. Only this time, they will be sent to a more secluded place, making it more difficult for the garrison, the police, and Huami to find them, and they will live a more miserable life." Huami sighed and did not refute Yang Honglin's words. Of course she understood. She had been watching it all her life. How could she not understand? Huami sighed and turned to an empty board house that had just been built. Avoiding the gazes of the 3 policemen, she put a room full of cherries, pomegranates, kiwis, cantaloupes, mineral water, semi-finished pickled fish, and chocolate cakes. After thinking for a while, she turned to the next room and placed several storage boxes there. The storage boxes were filled with toilet paper, sanitary napkins, toothpaste, towels, buckets, wash basins, coral fleece sets, and disposable underwear. He went to the next door and put a dozen alcohol stoves there. The box next to it was filled with solid alcohol and badminton rackets. Oh, yes, there are also 10,000 copies of Gangdang Zia's Wangjiwen, synchronized copybook, which is indispensable. Since these women cannot be released until the matter is clarified, they can only be allowed to continue making jackets. Of course, they have to be provided with food and drink during this period. Considering that after the women finish making jackets, have a full stomach and play badminton, they can also practice calligraphy and cultivate their character. This is called combining work and rest, and balancing movement and stillness.
Huami was really thoughtful about them.
Just as these supplies were being placed there, 4 or 5 more witches were sent in from the construction site in front.
Yang Honglines Froen Depenet.
The problem was more serious than he had imagined. By the time the first batch of women had finished reciting the 8 honors and 8 shames, writing their self-criticisms, and were shivering as they sewed thick woolen jackets for themselves, Yang Honglin came over with a stack of confessions in his hand and showed them to Huami. "These women said they were deceived by you." Huami raised her eyes to look at Yang Honglin. "Do you believe it?" "Believe her. She is just bored and deceives women into looking for jobs, but in fact she is witches on the street. Yang Honglin shook his head and tapped his forehead. I have brains. Using professional interrogation techniques, veteran police officers like Yang Honglin got to know the details of these witches in just a few words. On the edge of Xiang'e Expressway, between Xiangqing and a city, there is a large unfinished villa complex. Rather than saying that they were deceived by Huami, it would be more accurate to say that they were recruited by the name of Huami. Some of the women here have never been to Xiangqing. They were deceived by a woman named Fong Xian on their way to Xiangqing. This world is too chaotic. It's too hard for people to live well. Fong Xian almost always succeeds in her deceptions.
Yang Honglin explained solemnly.
In fact, some women don't care whether they are being cheated or not. When they are cold and hungry, their lives are threatened and they have no guarantee of survival. Give those who stutter and let them do anything. Therefore, at this point, it doesn't matter whether it was Fong Xian who deceived them, or Huami who deceived them, or whether they took the bait voluntarily. What matters is staying alive. But it's still disgusting to be messed around with by someone using a name. Huami took the confession with an expressionless face, read it one by one, pointed at the fungo on it, and said, "This den is not easy to defend. The three of you are definitely not enough. We have to notify the garrison. Brother Fan and Chun who have a close relationship. If Chun who is going to Xiangqing or City B, then it is very likely that he is in this huge red light district. Chun who has already seized the arsenal of City A. He is a man with heavy firepower. If Yang Honglin and other 3 policemen rashly go to his house, it would be like hitting a rock with an egg." After listening to Huami's explanation, Yang Honglin immediately turned around and informed Gong Yi of what happened here. Gong Yi asked a few questions about the situation and notified Chao Feng to send garrison troops over for support. He hung up the phone with Yang Honglin, and then Huami's phone rang. Huami looked down and saw that it was Gong Yi calling, but she didn't answer. Even if you use your toes to think, you can know what Gong Yi wants to say, which is simply to ask her to go back to Xiangqing as soon as possible. Why is she answering the phone? At this time, there were successive cases of witches going missing on the Hunan A Expressway, which finally aroused the vigilance of the red light district ahead. A group of men contacted several workers at the dredging site. Those workers were very upset because they were using their hard-earned money to have fun but were strictly forbidden by Huami. They just couldn't stand Huami's domineering behavior. So Brother Fan's people came to inquire about the situation, and they told Brother Fan's henchmen what Huami had done. In the red light district, Brother Fan, wearing a well-fitting suit, stood in the dark room with gorgeous light, with his hands down, and said, "Boss, what do you think?" Chun Hu, who was sitting in the dark, hadn't spoken yet, but Zhu Xianjun, who was sitting on the sofa, spoke up. "It's this woman named Huami again. Why is she everywhere?" Not long ago, he took his last remaining pony to the medical and medicinal materials market in City B, intending to capture Huami, have some fun with her, and then send her to Brother Fan. As a result, Zhu Xianjun waited outside the medicinal materials market for a whole day, but none of the thugs who had gone in came out. No one knows what happened. Zhu Xianjun also waited until the garrisons who were transporting the goods and Chichuan's people had all left before he went into the medicinal materials market alone to take a look. There was no trace of any of the lackeys, not even a single clue left. It was as if his little minions suddenly disappeared from this world, leaving no trace at all. Therefore, Zhu Xianjun no longer dared to provoke Zhu Feng and Huami alone, so he came to Brother Fan. As a result, before I had spent 2 days in peace in Brother Fan's red light district, this Huami showed up again. In the gorgeous light, Chun Hu lit a cigar. Some people just like to pretend to be noble. It's time to ruin their lives. In the quiet room, Chun Hu laughed. Gong Yi is not easy to deal with, but he can't deal with a little woman? Juan, I'll give you a team of people to get your place back. As Chun Hu finished speaking, someone came into the office carrying several large boxes of weapons and placed them heavily in front of Zhu Xianjun. Chun Hu said, "The engineering team that cleared the Xiang'e Expressway doesn't need anyone alive anymore."
"Yes."
Zhu Xianjun stood up excitedly and walked out of Chun Hu's office with his weapon. As soon as he left, Chun-Hu said to Brother Fan, "Your place is pretty good, big and spacious, but Gong Yi is not someone who can be bribed, so move out as soon as possible." The red light district was originally placed in this location because of the popularity of Xiangqing and B City. Indeed, in the past few months, the red light district has grown larger, and more men have come to patronize it. Business is getting better and better. But the garrison commanders of Xiangqing and City B could not be dealt with, and Gong Yi was a stubborn person. The scale of the red light district has grown to this point, and if it weren't for the protection of the people above, it would be quite troublesome. Brother Fan's current development has reached its limit. Brother Fan, who is standing in front of Chun-Hu, asked in a low voice, "Is there a suitable place, boss?" Chun-Hu didn't say anything. The sparks from the cigar in his hand flickered, and finally, he looked at City C on the map. Huami and Yang Honglin were heading up to the construction site, and the garrison support from Xiangqing had not arrived yet, so the two of them had to withdraw the workers from the construction site as soon as possible. As soon as they entered the construction site, Huami asked all the workers to stop working and go to the toll station immediately. One of the workers seemed to finally be unable to bear it anymore and threw the shovel in his hand to the ground, pointing at Huami and angrily said, "One moment you make us work, the next moment you don't let us work. You stinky woman, you give us a few dollars and you treat us like beasts of burden." Huami slapped the man and knocked him to the ground. "What are you fussing about? You didn't realize the problem was so serious. The further you clear the way, the closer you get to Brother Fan's territory. Get out of here now." Most of the workers were obedient. They quickly packed up their tools and lined up to retreat to the toll station. After all, they took Huami's money and supplies, and they just wanted to live and work well. Although they didn't know what happened, they just listened to Party A. But a few workers took advantage of the chaos to exchange glances and rushed towards Huami. It was rumored that Huami was a pregnant woman, just a pregnant woman. Several grown men came together and beat Huami up to vent their anger. When Brother Fan sends someone over, they will hand Huami over to Brother Fan's people. When Yang Honglin saw that the men looked at him strangely, he immediately stood in front of Huami and shouted, "What are you going to do?" Huami slapped Yang Honglin aside, took out a Gatling gun, and rushed towards the men, shouting angrily, "Come on, let's hurt each other." Before she fired, she saw a bloody worker rushing toward her. As soon as the worker saw Huami, he shouted loudly, "Miss Hua, we were attacked, Miss Hua. Don't be afraid.
Kill them."
Huami fired her gun, and the bullets whizzed everywhere. Before the dissatisfied workers could rush to her, they were shot into sieves by Huami's Gatling gun.
Really? Sieve.
It was useless. She had overestimated Chun-Hu's fighting ability. What was he afraid of? Huami was aroused. She rushed forward with a hint of excitement, rushing towards Zhu Xianjun against the flow of people. Yang Honglin realized something was wrong because that was a pregnant woman, but Huami was too aggressive. She was like a madman, sweeping the Gatling gun in her hand all the way, attacking indiscriminately. Apart from helping to evacuate the panicked workers, Yang Honglin had no way to protect Huami at all. Fortunately, he is experienced in his business. After all, he was on duty outside during the May Day and National Day Golden Weeks, helping to evacuate the crowds. So, he has experience in evacuating people. The workers retreated in an orderly manner. Zhu Xianjun rushed forward with several large boxes of weapons and the team given to him by Chun-Hu, but he had not killed anyone yet. He was indiscriminately shot to the ground by Huami's Gatling gun.
Which?
Zhu Xianjun lay on the ground with his face up in disbelief, his body riddled with bullet holes. A foot stepped on his chest, causing him to choke and spit out blood. "Is there anyone else?" Huami stepped on Zhu Xianjun's chest, shouted loudly at the dark mass in front of him, and fired another round of attacks with the Gatling gun. The bullets fired into the empty night, but no sound of them hitting flesh was heard. On the highway covered with snow, the ground was littered with thugs who had been shot to pieces, and there were also several boxes of second-hand weapons on the ground with their lids opened, but which had not been distributed in time.
Yang Honglin.
Huami turned around, holding the Gatling gun and calling for help. Why was she the only one rushing forward? Didn't Yang Honglin come with her? Why didn't he rush forward? Soldier, let a pregnant woman rush to the front of the battlefield. Yang Honglin is also embarrassed? Yang Honglin ran up with sweat on his forehead and looked at Huami. Flower. Miss Flower, Huami asked fiercely. How many of us died? The evacuation was timely, and only 2 workers were injured. One of them was hit by Huami's stray bullet. He evacuated the area promptly this time. Although this greatly tested his professional ability, he did a great job in answering the question. Huami nodded and clenched her fists. Brother Fan is really going too far. He actually dared to hurt my people. Let's go and kill them. Yang Honglin was stunned and asked Sister Hu, no, Sister Hua, carefully, aren't we waiting for the garrison to come to support us? Before he finished speaking, Huami dug through the boxes of weapons and pulled out a brand new Gatling gun, which she stuffed into Yang Honglin's arms. We are lying in ambush outside the red light district. If their evil plan didn't succeed this time, they will definitely send someone out again. Then we will shoot them from the left and right, without alerting them or going too deep into the enemy's lair. Huami made a detailed plan, which was basically that she and Yang Honglin would guard the section from the red light district to Hunan A Expressway. Someone comes out, bang bang bang, done. Yang Honglin felt that he didn't have time to think because Huami was already there. Holding a heavy Gatling gun, Yang Honglin had to follow Huami and obey her arrangements. They ambushed outside the red light district on the left and right. He secretly lit a candle in his heart, not because he was worried that he would be killed by Brother Fan's men, but because he was worried that Huami would get too excited about killing and attack him indiscriminately. Snow particles continued to fall. In the quiet snowy night, the searchlights were still hanging high, illuminating a large area of corpses on the ground. The opened weapons box was empty. Not even a bullet was found. These weapons had been stored in the level 23 No. 1 storage by Huami when she took out the Gatling gun for Yang Honglin. She was embarrassed to collect the body for fear of scaring Yang Honglin. While waiting for Lu Xingyuan and his men to arrive, they were shocked by the tragic situation at the scene. He held a police officer's collar, looking anxious. Where's Sister Hua? How is Sister Hua? How can I explain this to Commander Gong? Each of the people who died at the scene had dozens of bullets in their bodies. Lu Xingyuan had never seen such a crazy shooting in his long time as a garrison officer. This is not treating bullets as bullets at all. The policeman who followed was pulled over by Yang Honglin to help control and educate the witches on the street. He had never seen such a brutal gunfight. However, the severity of the earthquake had tempered his character, so he just looked around slowly, but did not find Huami's body. It must be fine. Maybe he was captured by the pink guy in the red light district. For them, the fact that the adulterers in the red light district have grown to such a large scale in this world is already a giant cancer. What's more, according to Huami, the relationship between Brother Fan and Chun, who is that of superiors and subordinates, and Chun, who has weapons in his hands. The harmfulness increases sharply. So it was only natural that Huami was abducted by Fan Ji's men. Lu Xingyuan was very angry. He loosened the collar of the old policeman in front of him and asked, "Why did you let a pregnant woman face danger? You are all experienced veterans. Why did you let her notify the workers to evacuate?" The policeman who was questioned lowered his head. He and another policeman were educating and controlling those witches. When they finished, Huami and Yang Honglin had been gone for a long time. He felt very guilty and opened his mouth to apologize, but Lu Xingyuan had already informed Gong Yi. Gong Yi was rushing to the targeted location. When he heard Lu Xingyuan's report, he immediately called Huami. The call was not connected. Huami was in a dormant state, waiting to ambush the street urchins coming out of the red light district, and had set the caller ID to silent. Gong Yi was so anxious that he was about to explode. He forced himself to calm down, and with trembling hands and red eyes, he issued an order to Lu Xingyuan to clear out the gang. No matter who gets there first, let's just rush in and save her.
There's no need to waste time talking to them.
People like them have tortured my wife to death. If you want to break into a villa complex with armed forces, it would be a stupid move to take the main road. Who launched a surprise attack and entered through the main gate. Lu Xingyuan and Chao Feng of course avoided the Hunan A expressway and went around the overturned mountains and rivers nearby. They and Gong Yi's troops split into two groups, one on the left and the other on the right, like two sharp knives, and penetrated into the villa complex. When they saw street urchins or men holding weapons, they would shoot them to death directly. Da-da-da, da-da-da, the sound of AK-47 echoed in the night sky. On the Hunan A highway outside the main entrance of the red light district, Huami and Yang Honglin were as lonely as the snow. Each of them was holding a Gatling gun, with a highway between them, and their bodies were covered with white snow particles. Hearing the gunshot, Huami sighed. What's going on in this red light district? It's so lively. Yang Honglin on the opposite side moved. He took out his cell phone and sent a message to Huami. Yang Honglin. Miss Hua, how long do we have to ambush? Huami saw Yang Honglin sending a message. She took out her cell phone and was about to reply to Yang Honglin when she saw a lot of missed calls on her phone. They were all calls from Gong Yi. Huami called Gong Yi back. It seemed like a long time had passed before Gong Yi picked up the phone. The voice on the other end was very noisy, with gunshots coming one after another, like firecrackers. Hello? Gong Yi's voice trembled a little. Huami raised her head, looked towards the red light district, and asked, It's like New Year's Eve in the red light district. Are you in there? The man's voice was a little muffled. He asked, Where are you? I'm an ice sculpture at the gate. What's wrong? Huami looked at the bustling red light district dejectedly. She had been standing here, waiting for the garrison to appear so that they could take action together. How come the garrison rushed in without calling her? On the other end of the phone, Gong Yi's shaking hands finally calmed down. His heart was shaking all the way forward. In the surrounding villas, women were screaming in fear, but Gong Yi breathed a sigh of relief and said to Huami on the phone with a smile, It's okay. It's a bit messy here. Find a place to wait for me in the wind and snow. We'll go back to Xiangqing together. I'll accompany you to the prenatal checkup. He hid all the thrills and earth-shattering events in just a few words. As a grown man, he didn't need to rush to tell her all his worries and fears along the way. Everything has become a thing of the past now that we know Huami is safe. Huami responded and asked Gong Yi, Did you see Fong Xian in there? Too many people have died, and we haven't counted them yet. Gong Yi replied to Huami, stood up straight, and continued to rush forward. They will not kill women or men without weapons. But a lot of people still died here. It was too dark, and there were too many people. People on the roadside were squatting on the ground with their heads in their hands, or raising their hands in surrender. There were garrisons constantly running in front and behind Gong Yi, with sophisticated AK-47s in their hands. A large red light district was suddenly flooded with more than 200 garrisons. It was easy to destroy the power of this place. In a villa, Fong Xian hurried upstairs and grabbed Qin Xiaolan, who was locked in the room. Come with me quickly. I will take you to a safe place. There are bandits here. They are all murderers who will not blink an eye. Qin Xiaolan had just arrived in this red light district and had just been settled down by Fong Xian when she encountered a sudden attack. She had no idea what was going on. With heavy firepower coming at them, Fong Xian was actually confused, but the message passed down from above was that those who were willing to follow Brother Fan to make money should find a way to escape from the red light district on their own. If there is a small chicken head that can hold the chicken in your hand, try to take it. After all, when Brother Fan moves to another place, he still has to make money by selling chickens. Fong Xian thought about it and realized that if he took others away, they would probably struggle a few times and attract the attention of the garrison, which would be terrible. Qin Xiaolan was easy to deceive, and she had just arrived and had no idea of the situation. As expected, Qin Xiaolan hurriedly followed Fong Xian out of the villa. Seeing the armed guards running past, Qin Xiaolan asked in surprise, Fong Xian, where on earth is this place? Why are there guards killing people? Shoo, don't talk, or I'll be killed too. Fong Xian pulled Qin Xiaolan and squatted down. She waited until the garrison in front ran far away before she pulled Qin Xiaolan and continued to run outside the villa complex. After running for a while, Qin Xiaolan gave up. Where's my boyfriend? Is he okay? She came with Ma Jixuan to find her brother. It's so chaotic outside now. Where is her boyfriend? Fong Xian thought about it and realized that when Qin Xiaolan and Ma Jixuan entered the red light district, they were taken away separately by the people there. After Ma Jixuan was forced to leave, he was either in some woman's bed or being dragged away to gamble. And now, Fong Xian didn't know where to find Ma Jixuan. So she said to Qin Xiaolan anxiously, "It's too chaotic here. Let's go find your brother first and then contact your boyfriend. Don't worry, your boyfriend is a grown-up. He knows how to protect himself. He'll be fine." Qin Xiaolan hesitated, but her brother had been missing for a long time, and Qin Xiaolan and her mother looked for him everywhere at first. However, there are too many missing people in this world. While they are mother and daughter looking for someone, there are also many people who have lost their loved ones while fleeing to Xiangqing. They're also looking for someone who would notice a Qin Xiran who disappeared without a trace and had no importance. Therefore, Qin's mother and Qin Xiaolan gained nothing during that time. Qin Xiaolan and her mother were very sad. Later, it was Qin Xiaolan's boyfriend Ma Jixuan who comforted her. It was only after listening to her boyfriend that Qin Xiaolan gave up looking for Qin Xiran. If Fong Xian hadn't brought up this matter, saying that Huami knew the whereabouts of her brother and wanted to discuss with her how to find Huami, Qin Xiaolan and Ma Jixuan will not come here. Thinking of this, Qin Xiaolan decisively shook off Fong Xian's hand. "No, I won't go with you. I want to go find my boyfriend." Before she could finish her words, a wooden stick hit Qin Xiaolan on the back of the head. Her eyes went dark and her body went limp, revealing Monkey Bro behind her. When Fong Xian saw it, she said angrily, "Be gentle. She's so pretty. Don't beat her to death." Unkillable. Monkey Brother smiled at Fong Xian, picked up Qin Xiaolan, and said to Fong Xian, "You go ahead. I'll cover the rear, and we'll go find Brother Fan." Fong Xian nodded and took Monkey Brother and Qin Xiaolan and ran all the way to the main entrance of the red light district. There were other witches and male customers along the way, trying to escape from the red light district. No one knows what Chun Hu looks like, not even Huami. I don't even know what Brother Fan looks like. But Huami knew what Fong Xian looked like. Standing on the roadside waiting for Gong Yi, I saw a group of women and disheveled male customers running out of the red light district. When they encountered the garrison, they would squat down with their heads in their hands and wait for the garrison to leave with guns. Then the clients and the witches would run towards the highway like crazy. There were too many people, and it was too chaotic, but Huami still raised her gun and aimed at Fong Xian. After thinking about it, she switched to an AK-47 and fired a bullet, hitting Fong Xian's leg. The people on the road were even more terrified, and everyone ran around like a mess. Fong Xian fell to the ground and watched Monkey Brother pretending to protect the unconscious Qin Xiaolan and running away from her sight. Even Monkey didn't turn around to look at her. There was no one around to help her. Fong Xian wanted to move, but her leg was hit by a bullet and she couldn't move at all. A thin layer of snow particles had accumulated on the ground. Bright red blood fell on the white snow particles. Fong Xian panicked and cried loudly and weakly, "Don't kill me, don't kill me. I was also deceived. Don't." The men and women were running around in a hurry and had no time to pay attention to her. Huami put away her gun and walked forward from the side of the road. People were running and screaming all around her. She stood in the panicked crowd and looked at Fong Xian, lying on the ground. Elder sister. Fong Xian also saw Huami in her raincoat. She seemed to have found a savior. She endured the pain and dragged her bullet-hit leg towards Huami's sister. "You protected me. The garrison shot at me. You explained to them that I was also tricked into coming here." Until now, she still thought that the person who shot her was a garrison and Huami would not kill her. No matter how hard she thought, she would never imagine that the bullet in her leg was shot by Huami. No matter how many people ran out of the red light district, there would always be a moment when they would all run away. By the time most of the survivors on this road had run away, Huami had already walked in front of Fong Xian. The murderous intent in her eyes was obvious. He took out a machete in his hand. It's not worth wasting another bullet on someone like Fong Xian. Fong Xian on the ground seemed to have finally noticed the murderous intent in Huami. She dragged her injured leg back in disbelief. Sister, please don't be like this.
I'm Fang Xian.
Are you crazy? Huami held a knife and followed her forward. Fong Xian shook her head, leaving a long trail of blood in the snow. She cried loudly. Why didn't you protect me? The garrison shot me. Why did you scare me too? I'm not trying to scare you. I really want you to die today. Huami stepped forward with a cold look on her face. Fong Xian was crying on the ground with tears and snot all over her face.
Why?
Who will take care of my dad if I die? Even if our Fong family didn't raise you with luxury, you would have died somewhere if our Fong family hadn't given you a place to live. Fong Xian almost roared as he spoke these words. Huami looked down at her and smiled. Your father starved to death in the tent. Have you never gone back to see him? Then how can you support your father? These words made Fong Xian stunned. Fong Hui was dead? People like that are like weeds. People who can survive in any harsh environment are dead? At this moment, Fong Xian didn't know what to say. She clearly didn't believe it, but everything told her that there was a trace to it. When leaving the tent, Fong Hui had been beaten so badly by Monkey Brother that he had difficulty even moving. Fong Xian didn't care. After all, as a father like him, he had never protected her from the wind and rain. How could she possibly think about him? Under the extreme living conditions, it was already good enough for Fong Xian to take care of herself. Fong Xian reacted immediately and looked up at Huami fiercely. What do you mean by telling me this? I don't feel guilty at all. If you hadn't ignored us, how could my father have died? How did I end up like this?
Huami.
You are outstanding in every way. You are a rascal who has no parents. Why should you live a happier life than me?
Why?
I wonder when a person's earliest memory can be traced back? In Fong Xian's earliest memory, Huami's parents were still alive, and her and Huami's childhood life were simply the two most extreme control groups. In the Fong family, Fong Xian's parents were always arguing, constantly arguing about money, about work, about the big and small things in life, about all kinds of things. Most of the time, the parents end up fighting each other. In the Hua family, Huami lives like a little princess. She has many beautiful new dresses, a piggy bank full of change, a brand new study desk, and a pair of humble, gentle, and loving parents. She also has a large, clean bedroom.
Why?
Why didn't Fong Xian have the same life as Huami? Fong Xian didn't understand why since she was a child. Why did she have to have such a bad pair of parents? Why did Huami live better than her, even though they were sisters? Fortunately, Huami's parents died, and Huami became a poor creature even more pitiful than her. She moved from that beautiful and spacious house to the cramped, dark, and tense Fong family. Fong Xian's parents took pity on Huami and gave her a place to live. Fong Xian was so happy at that time. Huami, whom she had always envied and was jealous of, was living an even more miserable life than her. How could Fong Xian not be happy? But this happiness did not last long. During the years of the Fong family, Huami did not turn out as Fong Xian had imagined. Amid the trivialities of the Fong family, her personality became increasingly distorted, and her life became increasingly bleak and decadent. On the contrary, everything about the Fong family made Huami more resilient. She was admitted to a good university and finally had the life that Fong Xian longed for. Why is this happening? Can't that poor guy without parents just stay poor forever? If Huami's life wasn't so good, perhaps Fong Xian would feel better and she wouldn't be so envious, jealous, and hateful of Huami. You're done? Huami had already walked in front of Fong Xian. She pointed a machete at Fong Xian. No one can choose the cards in their hand. It is God who deals the cards. If you have a bad attitude, no matter how good the cards in your hand are, you will lose everything. You have played all your cards. I just didn't want to bother with you. I killed you today only because you used my name to mess around everywhere, which made it impossible for me to keep you. The lights of the red light district were flickering in the distance. Survivors ran out one after another. When they saw Fong Xian lying in the snow, they dared not move forward. They could only take a detour. The snow from the sky fell and swam onto Fong Xian's cut neck. The bright red and hot blood soaked the thin snow beneath her. Her eyes were wide open, watching the snowflakes falling from the sky. As if extremely unwilling, it was filled with beautiful despair. This was the scene Ma Jixuan saw when he stumbled out of the red light district. He rushed over in surprise and knelt beside Fong Xian. He looked up at Huami, who was putting away her knife.
You.
Why did you want to kill her? Where's my girlfriend? Where is Xiaolan? Ma Jixuan's head was still dizzy. He had drunk too much alcohol last night, and he couldn't remember many things. The only familiar face he remembered was Fong Xian smiling at him. The garrison has entered the red light district, and Brother Fan asked everyone to leave quickly. He and the woman hurriedly put on their clothes and separated as soon as they ran out the door. It was a one-night stand, and he didn't understand what was going on. After searching for Fong Xian and Qin Xiaolan in the red light district where gunshots were heard constantly, he discovered Fong Xian had been killed as soon as he walked out of the red light district. What kind of deep hatred could have led to such cruel killing of a weak woman here? For a moment, Ma Jixuan looked at Huami with anger in his eyes. Huami looked down at Ma Jixuan expressionlessly. Your girlfriend? She must have been tricked by Fong Xian into becoming a witch. Go look for her. They all ran over there, over there, over there. She kindly pointed out several directions to Ma Jixuan. A lot of people, both men and women, had rushed out just now, and they were roughly going to these places. There are no cameras here, so who knows? Ma Jixuan stood up angrily. What nonsense are you talking about? How could my girlfriend do such a thing? He had a very good impression of Fong Xian. After all, Fong Xian always showed her good side in front of him. So no matter what, Ma Jixuan didn't believe that Fong Xian would trick his girlfriend into becoming a witch. But now Fong Xian has been killed, and there is no evidence to prove anything. The key question is, where did Qin Xiaolan go? Huami shrugged and stopped talking. Ma Jixuan thought that Qin Xiaolan would not be deceived into becoming a witch, so why would she argue with Ma Jixuan? However, I still have to remind you that if someone is missing at this time, you have to find them as soon as possible. If you miss the golden time, you may never find them again. Huami was kind-hearted. So many people had just run out, just like a train station during the Spring Festival travel rush. There were no surveillance cameras here, so who knew if Qin Xiaolan had taken advantage of the chaos and was here? Anyway, Huami didn't notice. If you want to find it, do it as soon as possible. Mobilize all the forces around you to block all possible ways for the population to spread, including the main roads or the small paths that the survivors often take. Every house on the roadside or every place where people gather must be searched inch by inch. Don't waste the golden time now. Because every minute you delay, your girlfriend may receive one more client. Huami said expressionlessly. Ma Jixuan was furious when he heard this. Are you a devil in disguise?
How can you say such a thing?
After arriving in Xiangqing, Ma Jixuan realized that what his brother and sister-in-law said was indeed true. Xiangqing and City B are much safer than City C. Although Xiangqing and City B have been smoothly transferred to garrison management, it is undeniable that, because of this, Xiangqing is clean and not a single dirty thing happens. More and more survivors will choose to come to Xiangqing. We are all unfortunate people. These are just some minor disputes. As long as Xiangqing and City B develop better and better, rules and order will be reestablished. Those disputes will completely disappear. Finally return to normal social state. Yes, don't imagine people to be too good, but there is no need to imagine people to be too bad. This cruel method of killing people over a disagreement and slaughtering people in the red light district really damages the image of Gong Yi as the garrison commander. Huami looked down at the time on her phone. Well, if Ma Jixuan didn't take action, Qin Xiaolan might never be found again. She shook her head. What's her business? Huami turned around and ignored Ma Jixuan. She looked at Yang Honglin, who was running over with an AK-47 and a Gatling gun, and said to him, "Gather the bodies here and pile them together. I will come back to clean them up. There are too many eyes watching here, and Huami cannot retrieve the body in public, so this basic cover-up is still necessary." "Okay, Miss Hua." Yang Honglin agreed and dragged Fong Xian's body to the side of the road. Huami turned around and was about to leave, but Ma Jixuan followed her and asked loudly, "Is your name Huami?" The woman with the surname Hua could order the police around, so Ma Jixuan quickly determined that the woman who killed Fong Xian was Huami. He looked at the figure in front of him and continued, "Xiao Lan and I came out to look for Fong Xian, and then we planned to find you together. I heard that you knew where Xiao Lan's brother was." Huami couldn't help but stop. She looked at the time again, turned back to look at Ma Jixuan, and moved her lips. To be honest, she shouldn't worry so much, but Ma Jixuan made it clear that he wanted to have a long talk. After this long talk, there would be no chance that Qin Xiaolan could be found. "I don't know. Why are you looking for me?" "Qin Ziren and I broke up before the earthquake." Huami said it nonchalantly and continued walking forward. Even if she was beaten to death, she would never say that she killed Qin Ziren. Why bother yourself with trouble for no reason? Ma Jixuan continued to follow Huami, as if he was determined to help his girlfriend find out Qin Ziren's whereabouts. But before Ma Jixuan could continue asking, Huami's cell phone rang. It was Gong Yi. He found a large amount of supplies in the red light district, which Brother Fan did not have time to take away when he escaped. Since Huami is here, he will let Huami receive the supplies. After hearing this, Huami started walking towards the red light district. Ma Jixuan wanted to follow her, but was stopped by the guards inside the red light district.
I am Huami, Huami.
Ma Jixuan pointed at Huami's back, trying to prove that they knew each other. However, Huami ignored his call and walked forward without even looking back. The garrison didn't know Ma Jixuan, so Chao Feng said seriously, "This place has been taken over by the garrison. You can't go in now." The people inside wanted to run out, and the garrison did not stop them. Faced with the threat of powerful firepower, it is human nature for a living person to run away. Ma Jixuan wanted to explain when he saw Gong Yi walking out from the depths of the red light district, stepping on a sea of colorful sign lights. Ma Jixuan didn't know Gong Yi, but he recognized the shoulder straps of the garrison commander. Gong Yi was seen standing in front of Huami. His figure was tall and strong. While he lowered his head to talk to Huami, he reached out and held Huami's wrist.
Who is that?
Gong Yi raised his eyes and glanced at Ma Jixuan, who was stopped. Huami raised the corner of her lip meaninglessly. Qin Ziren's sister's boyfriend was tricked by Fong Xian to come here, but instead of looking for his girlfriend, he kept asking me about Qin Ziren's whereabouts. There was nothing much to talk about with this person, so Gong Yi nodded slightly, then took Huami's hand and walked towards the place where the supply point was found. Then Huami asked, "You raided this red light district this time. Among those who escaped, there must be many people from Chern Hu and Brother Fan." Gong Yi in front said, They all knew that there was no way to deal with this situation. They are garrisoning, not a terrorist-armed organization. If the other party does not try to fight back with weapons, they cannot kill them directly. What's more, among those men who ran away, there were indeed many real clients of witches and gamblers. If they want to do business, there must be a market. Otherwise, they can't do business in a place where there are no people. Gong Yi said as he led Huami to a large row of townhouses. Now, besides Xiangqing and B City, the only city that still has some popularity is C City. I will contact Zhou Cheng, the garrison commander of C City, and ask him to rescue witches standing on the street along the way. Ma Yongchun, as the management commander of City C, has a very good understanding with Zhou Cheng, and he will also help. The popularity of City C is closely related to the tacit cooperation between Ma Yongchun and Zhou Cheng, and they kept Qinzhen in Xiangqing. Every day, almost every day, Qinzhen would wholesale a large amount of supplies from the RV supermarket and send them to City C. Their City C is also very powerful. All the roads on the ground are damaged, so they use passenger planes, fighter planes, and transport planes to transport supplies several times a day. All the planes that could be found were requisitioned by City C. With supplies being transported like ants moving house, it is inevitable that City C is popular. Gong Yi in front of him finished talking about City C and pointed to the large area of townhouses in front of him. Every villa here is filled with supplies. Take a look. I'll go count the casualties first. He let go of Huami's wrist, and just as he was about to leave, he stopped and put one hand on Huami's belly. Through the raincoat and coral fleece maternity clothes, he frowned and asked, "How are my girls?" She was so active, totally different from ordinary pregnant women, jumping around and doing things everywhere. Gong Yi was really worried. He was worried about his two daughters, and Huami reflexively took 2 steps back because of Gong Yi's sudden intimate action. Just really a muscle reflex. Gong Yi raised his eyes and looked at Huami. His eyes were deep. "What are you hiding from?" Huami lowered her raised knee and gave Gong Yi an awkward smile. "I thought you were going to beat me up." This made Gong Yi glare at Huami. Huami didn't even need to reply. His girls were staying in Huami's belly and seemed to be doing well. She's pregnant, yet she dares to engage in physical combat. From now on, if you can control this conditioned reflex a little, no matter who I hit, I won't be able to hit you. Okay, keep busy. Don't get too tired. Gong Yi raised his hand and rubbed Huami's head, then turned around to clean up the casualties. Huami was left alone in front of the townhouse stockpiled with supplies. Huami looked back at Gong Yi's back. Taking into account some unreasonable things, Gong Yi asked the garrison to clean up all the townhouses.
There is no one in the area now.
There was not a single one, whether garrison or dead. It greatly facilitates Huami's collection of supplies. She walked into the first villa, and just as Gong Yi said, the villa was filled with supplies. This should be the warehouse that Brother Fan uses to stockpile goods. Huami casually opened a cardboard box, and inside were brand new rolls of unopened toilet paper. Toilet paper for the entire villa. Huami put the toilet paper from this villa into the number 1 storage at level 23, and then went to the second villa. The whole villa is filled with both long-acting and short-acting contraceptives. It seems that Brother Fan has studied this area in depth and even keeps this kind of thing on hand. After all, if the witches he is get pregnant, they will have no time to make money. But some clients just don't like to wear condoms. Huami also collected all the contraceptive pills in the villa, and she planned to sell them to Xi and Chiru. Let Xi and Chiru arrange it. There are also condoms in the remaining villas, the ordinary kind, which cannot be compared with the condoms produced in Huami's level 16 factory. There are also some gynecological medicines that can reduce inflammation and relieve itching, both for internal and external use. For example, potassium permanganate solution, sulforaflavescens wash solution, metronidazole chlorhexidine wash solution. Huami collected them all, keeping a few thousand bottles for herself, and prepared to sell the rest to Xi and Chiru for money. Other than that, there is food, all kinds of food. The basement of each villa is filled with freezers, and each freezer is full of food, including steaks, pizza, pork, chicken legs, etc. Huami collects them all together with the freezers. Finally, she found a large amount of diesel and several large generators next to the townhouses. The red light district created by Brother Fan not only collects money from clients, but also their supplies. As long as you have food, daily necessities, and drinks, you can sleep with a woman here. Of course, there are also casinos here, which mostly attract old gamblers like Feng Hui. There are also pigs of various sizes. The so-called pig refers to Qin Xiaolan's boyfriend, Ma Jishuan. These young men had money and supplies, but for various reasons, they were deceived into going to the red light district for entertainment. In the end, they were cheated out of all their money, just like slaughtering pigs. These witches, old gamblers, and pigs are a huge and inexhaustible group that will continuously supply Brother Fan with large amounts of money and supplies. Now, all the money has been taken away, and Huami believes that the supplies that cannot be taken away are just a drop in the bucket in Brother Fan's hands. She collected all the supplies in the red light district, including several large generators and a large amount of diesel. She still had a use for the generator set. Now that the straw weaving factory had been built, Huami planned to install a generator set in the factory. The workers in the straw weaving factory work in 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. After Huami collected all the supplies, the level 23 warehouse was expanded to level 24, and she got another chance to draw a lottery. Now it is remaining draws X3 when Huami found Gong Yi. The corpses in the entire red light district had been neatly arranged by the garrison and placed in an open space. The weapons in the corpses' hands were put into storage boxes. Huami stretched her neck and looked into the box. Most of these weapons were pistols, neither old nor new. It seemed that many of them were already 10 to 20 years old. Weapons are different from other supplies.
They will all be recycled by Gong Yi.
There will be special people in the garrison to check the firearms. Those that can be used will be stockpiled in the armory for emergency use. Those that cannot be used will be destroyed on the spot. Gong Yi will not let these weapons fall into the hands of the survivors. Seeing that Huami had been staring at the weapons in the box, Gong Yi came over, pinched the back of her neck, and lifted Huami back. These guns are prone to accidental discharge, so don't play with them. He knew that she had better weapons than these, so if she wanted to play, she should play with her own weapons instead of these inferior ones. Huami uttered an ayah and was lifted aside by Gong Yi. He then looked at the bodies on the ground and asked, "What should we do with these bodies?" Gong Yi glanced at Huami and said, "Crematorium. Then I can help drive and take these bodies to the crematorium." Huami looked at Gong Yi with a pair of fox eyes and smiled. From her appearance, she didn't seem like a peaceful person. Gong Yi hesitated for a moment and nodded. "Then after you deliver the body, wait for me in your RV supermarket, and we will go to see Dr. Xian." He was worried about Huami, afraid that she would cause trouble again, so he gave her a few more nagging instructions. Huami ignored it and nodded while watching all the bodies being loaded into the truck. Finally, she couldn't wait to run to the large truck in front of her which had already loaded the bodies, and drove away. Gong Yi sighed when he saw this. Just scold her like that. She is his wife, not his garrison. I gave him some gentle advice, but he didn't seem to be listening at all. Asked, "What can Gong Yi do?" Ma Jixuan, who was outside the red light district, watched Huami drive a large truck onto the Xiang'e highway and rush towards Xiangqing. Looking at Chao Feng's vigilant and sarcastic gaze, he suddenly felt a little frustrated. There was no way out. The red light district did not allow anyone to enter. No matter how long Ma Jixuan waited outside the red light district, he could only return to Xiangqing dejectedly in the end. When they came, Ma Jixuan walked with Qin Xiaolan. On his way back, Ma Jixuan called his sister-in-law and asked her to send a car to pick him up. The Hunan-A expressway has been completely shut down after dredging to the red light district. There were many survivors on the road, and they walked onto the Hunan-A expressway. The flying snow particles hit people, and some people who were wearing thin clothes had already turned purple from the cold. Fortunately, the ubiquitous small vendors have set up their stalls outside the red light district. Some stalls have already started selling coral fleece 4-piece sets. They bought the goods in bulk from RV Supermarket and then took them to Xiang'e and Xiangbi expressways to sell them. Although they were 4-piece coral fleece sets, they were very popular in this kind of weather. After the survivors bought 4-piece coral fleece suits, they wrapped the warm fabric around themselves and put on raincoats on the outside. Although it doesn't look good, it is very warm. And among these shivering survivors, a car stopped on the side of the road. Ma Jixuan walked over tremblingly and opened the car door. Inside was the wife of the Sea City Management Commander, Qin Zhen. Seeing Ma Jixuan sitting in, Qin Zhen held her bulging belly and frowned. How did it become like this? Where's Xiaolan? Qin Xiaolan is a distant relative of Qin Zhen's family. They met in Xiangqing. Knowing that Qin Xiaolan didn't have a boyfriend and Ma Jixuan didn't have a girlfriend, Qin Zhen introduced them to each other. Ma Jixuan pinched his brows. It's too chaotic here. They may have already followed the survivors back to Xiangqing. He thought Qin Xiaolan was not stupid. She had legs and would not run around everywhere. With the firepower of the garrison coming, where else could she go if not returning to Xiangqing? That's why Ma Jixuan didn't listen to Huami and mobilized all his forces to look for her. The people and power his brother left in Xiangqing were to be used for serious work and would not be used by him to find someone who would return to Xiangqing on his own. Qin Zhen responded and asked the driver to drive. On the way, he said to Ma Jixuan, if she is really worried about her brother and wants to find Qin Ziren, then she should go to the missing persons registration forum online or post a missing person notice on the missing person wall. Why do I drag you around all day? This time, you almost ran into the muzzle of the garrison. If anything happens to you, how can I explain to your brother? As there were more and more survivors in Xiangqing and City B, over time, an online missing person forum began to appear in the orderly Xiangqing and City B. The networks of the two cities are connected. Xiangqing and City B also have a real missing person wall. This does not require anyone to organize and lead it. It is the product of the natural development of Xiangqing and City B. I also heard that this missing person forum and missing person wall have helped many people find their loved ones. Although Qin Zhen and Qin Xiaolan and her daughter are relatives, they have not been in contact or visited for a long time. She now even regretted introducing Qin Xiaolan to Ma Jixuan. There was nothing else to say. Qin Zhen just felt that Qin Xiaolan was too petty. The ancients paid attention to the matching of family backgrounds, which makes sense. Now that the world has become like this, the entire world order is being reorganized. Ma Yongchun and Zhou Cheng in City C are trying hard to adapt to this reorganized rules and order. Although Qin Zhen lived in Xiangqing to take care of her pregnancy, she was not idle every day. With her big belly, she was engaged in lady diplomacy with the wealthy ladies from City C. The purpose is to get some money from these rich people to buy supplies for City C. They are all working in their respective positions, trying to give the people of City C a greater chance of survival. Everyone is struggling to survive. But looking at Qin Xiaolan again, every time she went out with Ma Jixuan, she would carry gifts of all sizes bought from the stalls and return to Xiangqing. Shopping and letting Ma Jixuan pay the bill has become a daily routine for Qin Xiaolan and Ma Jixuan in their relationship. Apart from these, Qin Xiaolan was looking for her brother. Now he even brought Ma Jixuan to the red light district to find his brother. In such a world as this, is it possible that Qin Xiaolan has never thought of anything else? In fact, this girl Qin Xiaolan has seriously lowered Ma Jixuan's vision. Qin Zhen became increasingly dissatisfied with this. Her tone was a little harsh. Since you are not married now, then break up with Xiaolan. Jixuan, please think about it. Ma Jixuan did not respond. He turned his head to the car window and looked at the survivors wrapped in coral fleece four-piece suits, trudging along the Hunan A expressway in the gray sky. He suddenly asked sister-in-law, do you know Huami? What is her specific relationship with those garrisons? Qin Zhen was stunned. Of course she knew Huami. The supplies that her husband and Zhou Cheng transported to City C were approved by this woman, Huami. Not someone you can easily offend. Even the people in City C have to curry favor with Huami. After all, Huami has a large amount of supplies in her hands. Qin Zhen frowned, thinking of the rumors about Huami and Qin Ziren, and said to Ma Jixuan, don't get involved here. Your girlfriend is not one to worry about. Look, you've only been dating her for a few months, and she's already causing trouble for us. Qin Zhen explained to Ma Jixuan the relationship between Huami and Gong Yi, as well as the relationship between Huami and Qin Ziren, and the relationship between Huami and Fang Xian. During the time she stayed in Xiangqing, she did not just play mahjong with rich ladies in Sea City, but also deliberately collected a lot of information about Huami and Gong Yi, as well as everyone around the couple. There's no way around it. This is just how their class is. They act much more cautiously than anyone else. He was afraid that he might accidentally offend someone on someone else's territory, which would not only harm himself, but also cause the entire City C to lose its source of supplies. That would be a loss. So Qin Zhen hopes that Ma Jixuan will not listen to Qin Xiaolan and provoke Huami. But Ma Jixuan responded perfunctorily. It's just Huami. What's there to not offend? It's just 2 hands and 2 legs. I don't have 3 heads and 6 arms. However, this woman was not like what Fang Xian said. She had dated many garrison boyfriends, which was why she was so popular among the garrisons. But it's because she and Gong Yi are a couple. Ma Jixuan sneered, I'm just asking, Huami is pregnant, and she dares to kill people with a knife. She's even more cruel than you, sister-in-law. Qin Zhen glanced at Ma Jixuan and said nothing. In this world, who can live a simple life? After entering Xiangqing, Qinzhen asked Ma Jixuan, "Are you going to look for your girlfriend? I mean, your sister-in-law has seen clearly during this period of time that she is not suitable for you." Hearing the encouragement to break up in Qinzhen's tone, Ma Jixuan seemed a little bored. "No, wait for her to come find me. I want to go back and rest first." After working on this for so long, Ma Jixuan was very tired. There was a look of satisfaction in Qinzhen's eyes. He asked the driver to drive straight to their residence. At this time, Huami had already collected a whole truckload of corpses and put them into her garbage station. She parked the truck outside the empty crematorium, teleported back to the Lotus Xingxing supermarket, and filled the underground garage with the supplies in her level 24 No.1 warehouse. After filling up the entire 3-story underground garage, Huami instantly arrived at the RV supermarket. The large warehouse behind the RV supermarket was covered with waterproof tarpaulin by Huijing. When Huami was piling supplies inside, she perfectly avoided everyone's sight. Just in time, when she finished her work, Gong Yi also returned to Xiangqing from the red light district. He and all the garrisons tore up the teleportation tickets and returned to Xiangqing. If you drive, it will waste too much gasoline and diesel. Using teleportation tickets will be more environmentally friendly and save a lot. Although Huami sold him a teleportation ticket for 10,000 yuan, but Gong Yi discovered something. If the garrisons huddled together, they could teleport multiple people by themselves by simply tearing off a teleportation ticket. It's just like a person teleporting with goods. A person can teleport as many people as he can teleport with goods. This saves a lot of teleportation tickets. When Gong Yi arrived outside the RV supermarket, he happened to meet Yu Mengmeng, who was stacking goods on the shelves outside with a big belly. Seeing Gong Yi coming, Yu Mengmeng shouted loudly, "Ami, your husband is here." A smile suddenly appeared on Gong Yi's handsome face, which was always serious. He nodded towards Yu Mengmeng and found this person very pleasing to the eye. "Hello. Hello, Commander." Yu Mengmeng suddenly felt flattered and pointed to the warehouse behind the supermarket. "Your wife is clearing out the goods in the back." As soon as he finished speaking, Huami came over wearing a coral fleece maternity dress. She strode forward and nudged Gong Yi's waist with her elbow. "Let's go for the prenatal checkup." Very straightforward. In fact, she had just had a prenatal checkup not long ago, but because her blood pressure was a little low, Xi and Chiru asked her to go for another checkup in a few days. It just so happened that Gong Yi was going to accompany her on a trip. Seeing Huami walking forward with big steps without caring about her relatives, Gong Yi hurriedly took the raincoat, chased after her, and threw the raincoat on Huami. "Walk slower. Don't you see the stones under your feet?" Being muttered like this all the way, Huami brought Gong Yi to Xi and Chiru's office. Behind the sky blue curtain, Gong Yi rubbed his hands and sat nervously beside Huami. For the first time, he saw Huami roll up her clothes, revealing her pregnant belly. He was shocked. "Your belly is this big?" Because the weather is too cold now, Huami is wearing many clothes. Over her thermal underwear, she is wearing a loose coral fleece maternity dress, and over the maternity dress, she is also wearing a large raincoat, so that her belly is not noticeable. Gong Yi's impression of Huami's belly is still the flatness it had under his lips that night. So after Huami rolled up her clothes, the belly that was exposed was bigger than when Gong Yi touched it for the first time. Xi and Chiru, who was watching the ultrasound at the side, glanced at Gong Yi and explained, "After all, there are 2 babies, so the belly will be a little bigger than the normal 3-month pregnancy. It's okay, as long as you don't eat too much and let the baby grow too big. It's still within the normal range. You can't eat too much, right?" Before Huami even opened her mouth to ask, Gong Yi asked nervously, "What about the 2 girls? If they don't eat so much, will they be malnourished?" In the early stage, nutrition must be the main focus, and in the later stage, diet should be controlled. Otherwise, it is still very risky to perform a cesarean section in this environment. Xi and Chiru is a believer in natural childbirth, although natural births of twins are rare in this day and age. But if possible, Xi and Chiru still supports natural childbirth. Huami is not an ordinary person who can go with the flow. Then, Xianqiru's face turned serious and she began to teach Gong Yi, "You have to treat sons and daughters equally. Commander Gong, you really need to change your mindset of favoring girls over boys." Gong Yi nodded and responded, holding Huami's raincoat in his arms, as obediently as a student listening to his teacher's lecture. Huami, who was lying on the bed, couldn't help but burst out laughing. She winked at Xianqiru. "Let him listen to the baby's heartbeat." Gong Yi was still shocked by Huami's belly, the little bulge. It's not like he hadn't seen pregnant women with big bellies before, but when it happened to him and he got into the details, Gong Yi felt an indescribable sense of wonder in his heart. The two daughters grew up little by little in Huami's delicate and soft body and were finally born. This process is so touching. The wonders of living things are truly marvelous. Suddenly, he heard a sound like dense drum beats coming from the ultrasound machine. Gong Yi was so scared that he hugged his raincoat tightly and stood up. The chair behind him fell to the ground with a clang because of his movement. He hesitated, staring exaggeratedly at the two black and gray masses on the ultrasound machine. "What is this?" "Fetal heartbeat." Xianqiru couldn't help laughing. She had seen many parents' reactions to the fetal heartbeat, but few had such a big reaction like Gong Yi's.
Oh.
Gong Yi reluctantly adjusted the chair and sat back down with all his strength. He asked, "Do they still have a heartbeat?" Huami, who was lying on the bed, rolled her eyes at Gong Yi after hearing this. "Why can't there be a heartbeat?" "Boss, have you read the book?" Seeing it is one thing, but hearing it with your own ears is another feeling altogether. Suddenly, Gong Yi's eyes became hot, and he smiled with red eyes. Seeing his reaction, Huami, who originally wanted to laugh at him, felt soft in her heart. "Gong Yi, what's wrong with you?"
Fine.
Gong Yi reached out and held Huami's hand that was on the bedside. He leaned forward, looked at Huami with red eyes, and said sincerely, "You've worked hard." "Thank you." He knew that life in this world was not easy. Just look at how many pregnant women were waiting outside. Most of them were there for abortions. Some of them have very big bellies. Huami became pregnant with these two daughters after the earthquake, but she actually didn't have to have them. She could have chosen not to have it when the child was young. But Huami chose to give birth to these two daughters, and Gong Yi was filled with gratitude at this time. Although he also knew that Huami wanted to give birth to daughters not for him, he was still grateful to her. Because of Huami's choice, Gong Yi now has two blood-related relatives in this world. He also has a wife and a family. This is not something Huami has to do, but it is something that Gong Yi needs to be sincerely grateful for. The heartbeats of his daughters sounded like the beats of drums in his ears, beating Gong Yi's diamond heart like a pool of spring water, making his intestines knotted. Huami held Gong Yi's hand with her backhand, and there was a rare softness in her eyes. "You're welcome. You're welcome." When the two walked out of Xianqiru's office, Gong Yi was protecting Huami while holding the black and white B ultrasound report in his hand like a treasure, with a silly smile of anticipation on his face. His joyful reaction was in stark contrast to the atmosphere outside, where people were waiting in line for abortions. Huami tugged at Gong Yi's sleeve, and he looked over hurriedly. "What's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable?
Can you walk?"
"Let me carry you back." The belly is so big, just like it has eaten too much, and there are two babies inside. It's normal that Huami can't walk. She shook her head and whispered to Gong Yi, "Don't laugh out loud. Be serious." In the atmosphere of despair, Huami pulled Gong Yi's sleeve and walked outside. There were many pregnant women along the way, with sad looks on their faces. Even if they are reluctant to give up the babies in their bellies, the reality is pressing on them. You will be arrested and forced to move bricks. Although Huami also understands that such things between men and women are sometimes mutual. Afterwards, she completely forgot to take the birth control pill. You can't just blame men for things like this in bed. But the child is conceived by the woman, and the older the child is, the greater the harm to the woman's body will be if she has an abortion. In addition, the current medical conditions are so poor that the risk of a woman losing her life during an abortion increases sharply. Therefore, either men should consciously insist on wearing condoms when doing that, or they should control their lower bodies and not sleep with women. If the baby is really conceived, the man can't just pat the woman's back, push her to the emergency center, put her on the abortion table, and then leave her alone. Gong Yi felt that what Huami said made sense. Not all men were as self-aware as he was and could handle any consequences. Most men, after seeking temporary pleasure, do not think carefully about taking responsibility for the consequences that are about to come. Just like Yu Mingming's man, since Yu Mengmeng insisted on giving birth to the baby in her belly because of her panda blood, Yu Mingming's husband has never visited Yu Mengmeng once. Yu Mingming's husband will not take care of the child she gave birth to. If Yu Mengmeng did not give birth to the child and listen to her husband and had an abortion, she would be taking a huge risk. Her husband's body and wallet were not harmed at all. Obviously, it was a man who sowed the seeds, and men have also had pleasure. Before the disaster, this was just a moral issue, and at most people would just call him a scumbag, which didn't hurt at all. But in today's world where medical conditions are so poor, it concerns human life. This is life-threatening. Shouldn't men pay for such life risks? Gong immediately called Ko Minghong and asked him to come to the RV supermarket to discuss the issue of fertility management in Xiangqing and City B. There has to be a rule for this matter, otherwise pregnant women will form a long queue outside Xian Chiru's office. Her days are now filled with abortion surgeries. I took the time to do a pregnancy checkup for Huami today. While Gong Yi was on the phone, Huami was waiting beside him, and the two of them stood at the door of the emergency area. Miss Flower, a voice sounded, and Huami turned to look. Seeing Qin Jun walking over with a big belly accompanied by Ma Jixuan. Qin Jun was dressed very appropriately. Although her belly was a little bigger than Huami's, her clothes were clean and yet exuded a sense of elegance. Compared with Huami, she wears a warm and simple maternity outfit and looks no different from pregnant women from ordinary families. Ma Jixuan's eyes fell on Huami. He frowned slightly and said nothing. Ko Minghong arrived very quickly. Before Huami and Qinzhen could finish their greetings, he rushed over sweating profusely. Standing at the entrance of the emergency room, Ko Minghong said, I heard from Dr. Xian that I am very grateful to Miss Hua for providing these contraceptive pills and condoms. We are also looking for a printer recently to print some leaflets to promote the importance of condoms. As for condoms, Huami has no shortage of them. If the condoms she got from Brother Fan are not enough, she can use the level 16 factory to produce condoms. The key is that when it comes to things in bed, most of the time you still have to rely on your own consciousness. Gong Yi told Ko Minghong to find a few reliable lawyers to stay at the rescue center and deal with conflicts between men and women regarding abortion. Once the conflict is confirmed to be the man's responsibility, it cannot be let go. Qinzhen and Ma Jixuan listened for a while. Qinzhen smiled and asked Huami, Are you guys planning to do something big? Miss Hua, please bring us from City C along. The problems that occurred in Xiangqing and B actually also exist in City C. It's just that the management is so busy dealing with supplies that they can't take care of such details. The order in Xiangqing is very well controlled, and there are conditions to pay attention to details. In that case, Qinzhen followed suit and planned to wholesale a large number of condoms from Huami. If there are irresponsible scumbags in City C, they can be arrested and forced to move bricks. Qinzhen even thought that he could ask those scumbag men to clear the way for the Hunan Sea Expressway. After all, every time City C uses airplanes to transport supplies, it consumes a lot of energy. Huami looked at Qinzhen, not knowing if it was a coincidence today. Qinzhen also came for a pregnancy checkup. But before Huami could answer, Ma Jixuan, who was standing next to Qinzhen, frowned even deeper. Isn't this too much? How can you say that it's just a matter between two people? If you're so cruel when it comes to moral issues, will there be any hope for the survivors? He still remembered that Huami killed his cousin, a pregnant woman, with a knife. So Ma Jixuan felt from the bottom of his heart that Huami was too cruel and ruthless. He felt that Huami did everything without leaving any room for others, which made people feel suffocated. Qinzhen turned his head and looked at Ma Jixuan with cold eyes. When turning to face Huami, Qinzhen smiled sweetly and amiably. Ignore him. He has the temper of a spoiled young master because of my husband. Ami, can I call you that? She was trying to get close to Huami, and her attempt to please her was very obvious. Her attitude made Ma Jixuan very uncomfortable. Huami also glanced at Ma Jixuan and said indifferently, "So he is Commander Ma's younger brother, no wonder. No wonder they are so idealistic. It is obvious that such people have not been through the torture of extreme environments, and their ideological awareness has not been raised." Compared to Ma Jixuan, the woman Qin Zhen was a real surprise to Huami. She looked straight at Qin Zhen, and Qin Zhen smiled at her appropriately and generously. So Huami also smiled. There's money to be made. No matter what you want to buy in City C, I welcome it. A hiss sound was clearly heard coming from Ma Jixuan's nose. It is obvious that Ma Jixuan is very dissatisfied with Huami. Qin Zhen's expression remained unchanged, but a hint of coldness flashed in his eyes. Huami looked at Ma Jixuan and asked with a smile, "Have you found a girlfriend? If you find it, kids, hurry up and fall in love. Don't come here and cause trouble for a woman like Qin Zhen, who appears to be a little woman on the outside, but is actually an extremely strong woman at heart." Ma Jixuan was stunned for a moment. He had just returned to Xiangqing and had not slept for a few hours when he accompanied his sister-in-law for a prenatal checkup. There is no time to find Qin Xiaolan yet. According to common sense, Qin Xiaolan should have come to him and cried and told him about her grievances after being so frightened. Ma Jixuan had to buy a lot of supplies for Qin Xiaolan, otherwise she would be hard to coax. Qin Zhen also looked at Ma Jixuan with a slightly cold look in his eyes and said with a smile, "Since you're already at the rescue center, why don't you go find a girlfriend?" Then Qin Zhen smiled and said, "You know what sister-in-law means. It's up to you what you think. Sister-in-law respects you. Talk to the girl properly." Qin Zhen meant that Ma Jixuan and Qin Xiaolan should break up. Ma Jixuan responded and turned to find Qin Xiaolan. After sending him away, Qin Zhen looked at Huami with an embarrassed look on his face. "Little friend, don't mind, Ami, let's talk about wholesale condoms?" Huami turned her head and saw Ko Minghong chattering in front of Gong Yi as if he was reporting on his work. It seemed that Gong Yi couldn't leave for the time being, so she stood aside with Qin Zhen and talked about wholesale supplies. Qin Zhen is now in charge of the wholesale of materials in City C. Through her maternal diplomacy, she has contacted many wealthy businessmen in City C and asked them to donate money to support City C. Qin Zhen also said, "Those wealthy businessmen always say that they hope to settle down in Xiangqing, but in their hearts they also hope that C City will be better. I told them that I could use Madame Gong's connections to build a villa area in Xiangqing and sell the houses to them." "Ami, what do you think? They pay for the repairs, and then they buy the new one. You just collect the money." Xiangqing is in a good condition now, but except for an administrative building that is on the verge of collapse, all the buildings were destroyed in the earthquake. Later, the construction waste was transported out of the city by the clearance team and collected by Huami in the Level 2 garbage recycling station. So now Xiangqing is flat, with only the management building standing out from the crowd. All the survivors who entered Xiangqing set up their own tents. For people who were more particular, such living conditions were too harsh. Qin Zhen took the lead in this matter. She didn't want profit, but fame. What she wants is to tell all the wealthy people from City C that she has dignity in front of Gong, Yi, and Huami. What she said can be fulfilled. This will help her make more money for City C. This is the meaning of her existence in Xiangqing.
Huami nodded.
I still say that. If there's money to be made, why shouldn't I make it? It's just building a villa complex. I have a place, a group of unfinished villas. The water and electricity are already connected. We can move in after a little renovation. Thanks to Brother Fan, he completed the initial water and electricity work, as well as the basic decoration. Seeing Qin Zhen was about to speak, Huami raised her hand to stop him and continued, "I know that many rich people want to live in Xiangqing because it is safe. But this villa complex is next to the Xiang-A Expressway. I have a cotton-padded jacket factory there. It just so happens that I plan to set up a security team to protect all my assets, and the cotton-padded jacket factory on the Hunan-A Expressway will definitely be among them. If those rich people are willing to spend money to support a security team for me, I will expand the security team to cover the entire villa complex. Before he finished speaking, Ma Jixuan hurried back, looking serious and solemn. Xiaolon hasn't come back yet. What should I do?
This.
Huami looked at Qingjun, and Qingjun looked at Ma Jixuan. Ma Jixuan glanced at Huami, then looked at Gong Yi. Huami couldn't help but ask Ma Jixuan, "You haven't sent anyone to look for Qin Xiaolan?" Ma Jixuan was anxious and glared at Huami, but ignored her. She is just a pregnant woman and can't help at all. He doesn't want to respond to Huami at all. The smile on Qingjun's face faded a little. It just so happened that Gong Yi had already finished chatting with Ke Minghong. Ke Minghong recommended several lawyers to Gong Yi, all of whom were very skilled in the divorce field before the disaster. These talents may not be very strong in combat. In today's world, combat talents are becoming popular, and nerds have become a vulnerable group. Therefore, their living conditions are not very good. In this era, many people even begin to doubt what use it is that they have read books for so many decades. Many people who are smart but lazy have begun to doubt the value of their own lives. Many have become depressed and have committed suicide. So Ke Minghong took advantage of the situation and recommended a large number of psychological experts to Gong Yi. He wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to save a group of talents as much as possible. Gong Yi had no objection because he had obtained a large amount of supplies from Brother Fan and Chun Hu this time. These supplies should be enough to feed these lawyers and psychologists. Noticing Ma Jixuan's gaze, Gong Yi turned around and glanced at Ma Jixuan with sharp eyes. Ma Jixuan immediately took 2 steps forward and said to Gong Yi, "Commander Gong, my girlfriend is missing. Can you send someone to help me find her immediately?" After hearing this, everyone around was stunned for a moment. Even Gong Yi was stunned. He suspected that the man opposite, Ma Jixuan, might not be clear about his identity. He is the garrison commander, not a private bodyguard hired by the Ma family. If anyone can ask the garrison commanders of the 2 cities to help find someone, so there are so many missing people in the world. Is it worth Gong Yi to send people to find each one of them? Who is Qin Xiaolan? Without her, the planet will stop turning? Seeing Gong Yi's cold expression, Ma Jixuan hurriedly said, "We in City C purchase a large amount of supplies from Xiangqing every day. We are, after all, a major customer of Xiangqing. Commander Gong should be able to help with this." Huami looked at Qingjun with a smile in her eyes, with a teasing look. "I can't believe that City C is so arrogant and is doing business with Xiangqing. Is this the Ma family giving face to Gong Yi and Huami?" Qingjun's face, which always had a decent smile, finally cracked. She reached out and grabbed Ma Jixuan's arm. "Let's talk about this when we get back. Go back and ask your eldest brother to figure out a solution." Ma Jixuan was very anxious and said loudly to Gong Yi, "We can't afford to delay. We are small and powerless in Xiangqing. Now my girlfriend has disappeared in the red light district. She must have encountered something. If we go to find her now, we can suffer less." The nature of Qin Xiaolan's disappearance is different from that of Qin Xiren's disappearance. No one knows the ins and outs of Qin Xiren's disappearance, and he has been missing for a long time, so the hope of being found alive is very slim. But Qin Xiaolan disappeared after going to the red light district. Could she be near the red light district, or was she taken to another place with the flow of people? Ma Jixuan felt that if he went to look for her now, there was a great chance that he could find her. Gong Yi was right in front of him. As long as Gong Yi was willing to mobilize all his garrisons, he would definitely be able to find Qin Xiaolan. Without waiting for Gong Yi to speak, Huami looked at Ma Jixuan and said lightly, "I advised you outside the red light district to mobilize your forces to find him. Now you are anxious. It is already very difficult to find him. Of course, if you want to look for it now, there is still a chance to get it back. However, compared to when Qin Xiaolan was just taken away from the red light district, the amount of manpower and material resources invested may be much greater. Indeed, now only Gong Yi has such great power. But all the garrisons went out to look for Qin Xiaolan. Will the order in Xiangqing and City be maintained? Will the supplies be transported? Will the supply warehouses no longer need to be guarded? Will the order on the highway no longer need to be taken care of? Will Gong Yi no longer need to look for Chun Hu and Brother Fan? All the garrisons should go to look for Qin Xiaolan. Qin Xiaolan's importance has reached the point where, without her, humanity will be destroyed. Ma Zhishuan glared at Huami angrily. Will you shut up? If the incident had not happened to Huami, this cruel and ruthless woman would not feel pain. After all, it was an innocent life. Why could Huami act as if it had nothing to do with her? Ma Zhishuan looked angry again, and said to Huami, "You are always fussy. You are the one who talks the most and cares the most." His attitude made Qin Zhen's face even uglier. Qin Zhen tightly grasped the handbag in her hand. Gong Yi's handsome face turned completely pale. He reached out, grasped Huami's wrist, and protected her behind him. He said to Ma Zhishuan, "I don't have the manpower and time right now. If you need to find someone, go to the wall or the online search bar. Also, please be polite to my wife. This is not your sea city. It is not a place where young masters can do whatever they want. My wife and I have no obligation to spoil you. If you are worried, why didn't you look for it yourself when you came out of the red light district?" As the younger brother of the garrison commander in City C, Ma Zhishuan should have a lot of money and supplies in his arsenal, and he is fully capable of finding the person within the controllable range of the situation. Things are getting so complicated now. To be honest, there are so many people here, and Qin Xiaolan doesn't have a universal signal linker on her, so even Gong Yi can't handle it. Qin Zhen's face became more and more tense. Gong Yi lowered his head, glanced at the multifunction watch on his wrist, and said to Huami, "Let's go. I'll take you back first." Gong Yi squeezed out time to accompany Huami for her prenatal checkup. After coming out of the red light district, his men went out to track down Brother Fan. In fact, Gong Yi still has a lot of things to do, and he may have to go to City C in person next. Gong Yi is trying very hard to strike a balance between career and family. However, Ma Zhishuan seemed to have found a target and opened fire with full force. He turned to Gong Yi and said, "As the commander of Xiangqing and City B, this is the responsibility that Commander Gong should bear. For Commander Gong, this is just a small matter of a missing person, but for Qin Xiaolan, she is a living person." Pa, a slap was heard. It was Qin Zhen who couldn't stand it anymore and slapped Ma Zhishuan on the face. "Can you please shut up? Your brother and I have worked so hard to keep the supplies for the people in the city. Do you want to kill everyone in our city?" This was probably the first time that Qin Zhen got so angry at his brother-in-law. Ma Zhishuan was completely confused. He looked at Qin Zhen in disbelief, not understanding what he had done wrong. Gong Yi, who was standing by, pulled Huami a little further away and said, "Come on, I'll take you back first." After walking a little further, Gong Yi reminded Huami again, "This Mr. Ma from City C doesn't seem to have a clean mind. You should have less contact with him in the future." Huami rolled her eyes at Gong Yi, feeling that Gong Yi was more like her father than her husband. "Do I look like such an idiot? I've seen that this person is not in a good mind." After coming out of the red light district, Huami saw that Ma Zhishuan didn't seem that worried about Qin Xiaolan. But now, for Qin Xiaolan, he can openly order Gong Yi around, and even give the commander's wife a hard look. Although Huami didn't like the diplomacy of the ladies, she could imagine Qin Zhen's inner anger. At the entrance of the emergency area, Qin Zhen was so angry that she didn't even go for the prenatal checkup. She turned around and walked towards her car with her bulging belly. Ma Zhishuan hurriedly caught up with Qin Zhen and asked loudly and aggrievedly, "Sister-in-law, why did you hit me? What did I say wrong today?" Qin Xiaolan was indeed missing. As the commander of the garrison, shouldn't he be in charge? In the midst of the falling snow, Qin Zhen stopped, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. She turned around and looked at Ma Zhishuan. "You are wrong because you take yourself too seriously, and you take a trivial life too seriously. Zhishuan, your brother sent you to Xiangqing not because Xiangqing is the safest city among all the cities currently, but so that you can use your power in Xiangqing to connect Xiangqing and City C more deeply. None of us knows what will happen in the future. The only thing we know is that in such a magical world, the death rate is rising sharply. Maybe one day, among those corpses, there will be you and me, or even your brother." This was a bit harsh. Ma Zhishuan frowned and looked at Qin Zhen with disapproval. "Sister-in-law, why did you curse my brother?" Qin Zhen laughed, and in a short while, A layer of white snow fell on her exquisitely styled curly hair. Ma Yongchun has been smart all his life, but he is a brother like you, who has a muddled mind. I don't know what your brother would think if he knew what you did today. There are some problems that you cannot just cover your ears and eyes and pretend not to know. How long has it been since the sun came out? Even when the sun is at its brightest, the streetlights in Xiangqing are still on. At this time, Ma Jixuan told Qinzhen to be careful about what he ate and not to curse people when speaking. Qinzhen was almost laughing at Ma Jixuan's anger. She said to Ma Jixuan with disappointment in her eyes, "From today on, I don't want to care about you anymore. You can do whatever you want except leaving Xiangqing." She had already seen clearly that Ma Jixuan had never suffered any hardship since he was a child. Even when disaster struck, he was well protected by Ma Yongchun and Qinzhen. A child who has not been weaned has not grown up at all. Psychologically, Ma Jixuan is still terribly naive. In the past, Qinzhen thought that it was okay for boys to be simple-minded, but today's incident gave her a wake-up call. City C now completely relies on Xiang City for its survival. No matter what kind of person Huami is, she is someone City C cannot afford to offend. A child whose emotions are expressed on his face and who has not been weaned psychologically is not suitable for appearing in diplomatic occasions where every step is cautious. Qinzhen had heard about Huami's cruelty. Huami was in a good mood today, and faced with Ma Jixuan's repeated provocations, she did not lose her temper. If they went to a deserted place and Huami killed Ma Jixuan without anyone noticing, Qinzhen wouldn't know either. Even if he knew, what could Qinzhen do? He still had to greet Huami with a smile. In the adult world, there are not so many right and wrong, black and white. Most of it is gray. Qinzhen walked away in the increasingly heavy snow, leaving Ma Jixuan standing alone. After a while, Ma Jixuan received a transfer on his mobile phone. Qinzhen no longer cared about Ma Jixuan and just kept him in Xiangqing. As long as Ma Jixuan could not get out of Xiangqing, he could do whatever he wanted. As soon as she reached her car, she told the driver, "Prepare some gifts for the newborn baby and go find Mrs. Gong." Huami had just been sent to the RV supermarket by Gong Yi, and Chao Feng immediately came over and asked Gong Yi for the prenatal examination report. Gong Yi squinted at Chao Feng's matter-of-fact look and asked, "Why should I give you my wife's prenatal examination report?" Chao Feng stood at attention and said, "Seriously, Commander, everyone wants to know Sister Hua's prenatal examination report as soon as possible. Since you are the father of the child, we are all reluctant to be patient and did not ask you for the report as soon as possible. Please cooperate." "What?"
Gong Yi frowned.
"Tell me carefully. What do you want to do?" Looking at Chao Feng's attitude, it seems that he wants to the children away. Is there anything wrong with his status? Gong Yi is the father of the two girls, right? Chao Feng sighed, as if facing an outsider, and explained patiently. This is a massive baby-raising plan involving more than 5,000 garrisons. Because their commander is extremely busy and rarely accompanies Sister Hua for prenatal checkups, everyone shows the greatest understanding to the commander. But in fact, it has been scheduled for today. 3 other team leaders will accompany Sister Hua for the prenatal checkup. This has already been arranged in the schedule. The 3 garrison team leaders were assigned to their respective posts. Everyone works very hard. The garrison in charge of telling jokes now has to memorize 10 jokes every day and make sure they know them by heart. The person in charge of taking care of the mother during the confinement period reads the maternity care manual every day. The garrison in charge of childcare is learning about early childhood education, preschool education, elementary school learning, middle school adolescence, etc. However, the appearance of the commander-in-chief has disrupted the plans of the 5,000+ garrisons, and everyone has some opinions on this. No one said anything. After hearing this, Gong Yi pointed a finger at Chao Feng. His finger was shaking with anger. "What kind of plan is this? Why didn't you submit a report to me for approval? You are acting on your own. Does this also need approval?" Chao Feng looked at Gong Yi with some hesitation. They all felt that this was a private matter and had nothing to do with protecting the city and the survivors. It is their personal matter outside of their duties. Why do we have to report to our superiors? Gong Yi was seen holding Hua-Mi's prenatal examination report and yelling at him, "My sons, what do you want to do? Go to your business instead of making trouble for me all day long." They still want him to cooperate? If he cooperates with these idiots, what is he, a father, supposed to do? Chao Feng was kicked away by Gong Yi, who chased him and beat him for a long distance. Hua-Mi was watching from the side, laughing so hard that she couldn't straighten her back. Only then did she realize that the 3 garrison captains who gathered in Xiangqing were not there to carry out a special mission as she had thought before. Instead, I came to accompany her for the prenatal checkup according to the baby-raising plan. Yu Mengmeng just walked onto the RV and saw Hua-Mi sitting inside the RV laughing so hard that she also asked with a smile, "What's up? Why are you laughing so happily?" Hua-Mi shook her head and told Yu Mengmeng about Chao Feng and their plan to raise a child. Seeing the equally unbearable smile on Yu Mengmeng's face, Hua-Mi's gaze fell on Yu Mengmeng's belly again and asked, "When are you due?" "It's almost there. It won't be long."
Yu Mengmeng sa tapazit Hua-Mi.
This RV was recently found by Afu. Afu has been very keen on hoarding cars recently. Cars that used to cost hundreds of thousands of yuan can now be bought for only 10 or 20,000 yuan. Because people have cars but have no use for them, ordinary people rarely have access to energy sources such as gasoline and diesel. Even if we can get the oil, we will probably sell it directly to Sichuan and Yirong. Now the car can only run on Xiangqing, Cheng, Xiang'a, and Xiangbi expressways. Apart from these places, it can't go anywhere else. So after some people knew that Afu had collected all the cars, they often took the initiative to go to the outside of the RV supermarket to look for Afu. Like this brand new luxury top-of-the-line double extension RV with pop-up roof, there are already more than 50 of them in stock. Not to mention other nanny cars, which were transported one by one into the warehouse behind the RV supermarket, if Hua-Mi hadn't come back to clean them up every once in a while. I guess the warehouse behind can't even accommodate all these nanny cars. Hua-Mi had no objection to buying the cars, and even felt that this business was feasible. So instead of stopping Afu, he gave Afu 50 million yuan and asked Afu to use it to collect cars. A luxury top-of-the-line nanny car that costs 10,000 yuan. Let's not think about what you can do with it in the future. Just take it first. The RV that Hua-Mi is currently staying in is parked outside the RV supermarket for Hua-Mi to stay and rest. She looked at Yu Mengmeng's belly and asked, "What are your plans after the baby is born?" A hint of sadness appeared on Yu Mengmeng's face. She shook her head and was about to speak when she suddenly heard a noisy voice outside the RV supermarket. A sturdy male voice called out, "Yu Mengmeng, Yu Mengmeng, come out for a moment, Yu Mengmeng." In the supermarket, Yu Mengmeng and Hua-Mi looked at each other, and Yu Mengmeng's face suddenly became ugly. It was my husband's voice. This was quite surprising. The two of them had just started talking about Yu Mengmeng's child, and then Yu Mengmeng's husband came. Hua-Mi tilted her head, looked at Yu Mengmeng seriously, and asked, "During your pregnancy, didn't your husband never come to see you once? Why did he come now? Is it because you are about to give birth that your husband finally has a change of heart?" Yu Mengmeng didn't say anything. It's true. During this period, her husband never came to see her once to talk about their child. Is it a bit unrealistic to say that her husband has a change of heart now? Anyway, Yu Mengmeng still walked out of the RV. Hua-Mi sat down by the window of the RV, opened it and looked out. Dafu and Xiaofu were seen stopping a man and rushing to the back of the supermarket. It was Yu Mengmeng's husband whom she hadn't seen for several months. It was such a cold day, and her husband was shivering all over. His temper was not good, and he kept scolding the two children, Dafu and Xiaofu. Yu Mengmeng walked over with her big belly, pulled her husband aside, and talked. Just at that moment, Yu Mengmeng's husband raised his head and looked at Hua-Mi, who was sitting in the window of the RV. Lu Shubua's eyeballs rolled around in his eye sockets, full of brilliance. Hua-Mi lowered the window silently. She was very familiar with Lu Shubua's eyes. In the apocalypse, many calculating people looked at her in this way. At this time, Yirong got in the car and complained to Hua-Mi in a low voice that Lu Shubua, Yu Mengmeng's husband, hadn't come to see her for months. As soon as he came, he kept talking about Yu Mengmeng and didn't even ask about the child. Lu Shubua's movement just now was so loud that it not only alarmed the garrison, but even the busy Yi Rong and Afu knew that Yu Mingming's husband had appeared. Huami nodded slightly, leaned back in her chair, and said, "Just ask her about the specific situation later. The weather here is getting colder and colder. I have arranged a batch of hand-sewn cotton padded jackets. The first batch of goods should be shipped out. We will arrange it here in the next 2 days." A cotton padded jacket is sold for 1888, so the business should be good. Although the cloth was made of scraps of cloth, and the wool was picked up from Chunhu's industrial park, Huami spent all the supplies to support those witches. A cotton padded jacket at 1888 is really not expensive in this weather. Yi Rong responded and complained a few words about Lu Shubua's ill intentions. She sat for a while, and when she saw Gong Yi coming back, she got up and left. Gong Yi also saw Lu Shubua, but he didn't take it seriously. He just chased Chao Feng away with a pile of things in his hands. He placed these things in front of Hua Mi one by one. "This is a rattle toy. Boil it in boiling water, and then put it away. Give it to your daughters when they are born. This is a thermometer. The weather is getting colder now. Don't catch a cold. Always pay attention to changes in your body temperature. This is a pair of warm shoes. This is a pair of fleece-lined maternity pants, and this is..." He explained everything one by one, but looked at Huami's face, which seemed to be wandering in the void, with some concern. "Did you hear what I said? Did you take it to heart?" Huami came back to her senses and responded to him very perfunctorily. Gong Yi took a deep breath, stood in front of Huami, and chattered on and on for a long time. Huami rubbed her face, feeling very sleepy. "Gong Yi, you said I was pregnant, but you didn't come to see me for several months and ignored me. Suddenly one day, when I was about to give birth, you showed up."
Why?
Gong Yi was stunned for a moment, with a hint of sarcasm on his handsome face. "Then I'm afraid I'm sick. If I really did such a thing, you would arrest me and make me move bricks. This kind of behavior is undoubtedly a scumbag." "He is not a scumbag. From the beginning to the end, he wanted to be responsible to Huami. Even if there is no child, he will be responsible for her. Huami, as long as I'm not dead, I will crawl to your side even if I have to. You're pregnant, don't think too much. What are you thinking about all the time?" Huami blinked, and a rare strange feeling rose in her heart. However, seeing Gong Yi starting to give her many instructions again, Huami decisively ignored the tenderness in her heart and hurriedly urged him, "I get it. Okay, you are responsible. You are not a scumbag. Boss, go and maintain world peace. I am sleepy and need to sleep." Finally, this father left. Huami's eyelids had just drooped when Yu Mingming's screams suddenly came from outside the window. Everyone inside and outside the RV supermarket was alarmed. Huami suddenly opened her drooping eyelids and quickly ran out of the RV. Snowflakes were flying, and a thin layer of snow had accumulated on the ground. In an open space not far away, Lu Shubua was holding Yu Mingming's hand and saying something excitedly. Yu Mingming couldn't struggle free. The two children, Dafu and Xiaofu, were protecting her, preventing Lu Shubua from hitting her stomach with his rough hands and feet. Yi Rong winked at Afu, and Afu picked up the broom not far away. The garrisons around were also secretly observing Lu Shubua. Lu Shubua had no idea that he had become the focus of everyone's attention. He just grabbed Yu Mingming's hand and forced her to explain something. Huami walked over and said coldly, "Let go." When Lu Shubua saw that it was Huami, he loosened his grip, but his expression was clearly unconvinced. "I'm talking to my wife. That's not against the law, right?" In the snow, Huami looked at Yu Mingming. Yu Mingming was wearing a loose down jacket, but even so, it couldn't hide her huge belly. At this time, Yu Mingming's eyes were red with tears. She broke free from Lu Shubua's hand, stepped back quickly, and said to Lu Shubua, "I can't make the decision on this matter, and I can't promise you anything." Her husband came to see her for the first time in several months and just said a lot to her. He said that his life is very difficult now because he has a lot of strength and he spends every day in wind and rain to install light bulbs in the streets and alleys of Xiangqing. It's snowing now, the weather is very cold, and winter equipment is very expensive, so life is becoming increasingly difficult. Just look at the thin clothes he is wearing now. He said that he didn't want the child before because he thought he couldn't raise the child. Now that Yu Mengmeng is working with Huami, Yu Mengmeng has a lot of money and a good environment, so he also wanted to work at the RV supermarket. By then, the couple will live a good life, just like Ah Fu's family. Yu Mengmeng was actually very moved when she heard these words from Liu Shubua. It was really enviable to see Ah Fu's family reunited. But Yu Mengmeng also had a hunch that if she really helped her husband with work matters, she might even lose her current job. Although Huami is generous, she is not stupid. Huami doesn't want everyone, especially someone like Liu Shubua, who has obviously been labeled a scumbag. In Huami's circle, no one will like it. Liu Shubua took a step forward, clenched his fists, and his face was full of sarcasm. Yu Mengmeng, you are rich now. Doesn't this prove the saying that husband and wife are birds of the same forest, but they fly away separately when disaster strikes? As he spoke, he looked at Huami, who was standing beside him. Yu Mengmeng, you weren't like this before. This is an allusion to the fact that Huami led his wife astray. Huami stood in front of Yu Mengmeng and pointed in the direction of leaving. If you have any questions, go to the emergency department to find a lawyer, or we can find a lawyer to talk to you. Don't argue here now. She still has to do business here. Liu Shubua started quarreling with Yu Mengmeng as soon as he arrived. This is not his home. In the snow, Liu Shubua stared at Huami and moved his lips. He remembered that he still had to ask Huami to give him a job, so he stopped pestering her. I just turned around and left unwillingly. Yu Mengmeng, I will continue to look for you.
We two can have a good talk then.
As soon as he left, Yu Mengmeng's tears began to fall. Yi Rong trotted over and, together with Huami, took her to the RV. My husband came to me and hoped to work in the RV supermarket. It's not like I can't live without a man. He ignored the fact that I have panda blood and forced me to have an abortion. He ignored me for several months. What else can I expect? Although his perfect family is enviable, he is too selfish. I can't guarantee what he will accomplish if he comes to work here. Yu Mengmeng cried so sadly, there was no way she could not be sad. During this period, he never asked about the child, nor did he ask about my health. Huami glanced at Yi Rong, who felt the same way, and pulled a tissue for Yu Mengmeng. Ever since Yu Mengmeng and her husband had a falling out at the door of Xian Chiru's office, Yu Mengmeng's husband has not appeared again. When she met Yu Mengmeng's husband again, he actually wanted to use Yu Mengmeng's relationship to work in Huami's supermarket. Everyone knows that Huami's supermarket is a popular place. Every day there is a lot of traffic in front of this RV supermarket, with a large amount of supplies coming in and out. Ko Minghong had to specially plan out an area to separate the passage to the RV supermarket and the passage to the rescue center. Otherwise, if the road is blocked, the rescue work will be greatly delayed. So currently this large area is half of the rescue center and the other half is the storage area for RV supermarket supplies. To say that the RV supermarket has no shortage of people, but Huami waited for Yu Mengmeng to calm down after crying. She laughed and said, "You are quite self-aware. Keep it up. In fact, if necessary, you can also go to the rescue center to find a lawyer and ask your husband to compensate you with a large sum of money." This matter is now a new rule in Xiangqing. Although Yu Mengmeng is living a decent life now, her husband is already considered a scumbag. Just now, Qin Jin sent a message to Huami, expressing his serious desire to cooperate with Huami to find some scumbag men and clear the Hunan Sea Expressway. To this end, Qin Jin was very sincere. They could find a group of powerful lawyers and judges in City C to work together with the lawyers in Xiangqing who were in charge of this matter to discuss and formulate relevant and complete laws and regulations. Huami could see that Qin Jin was very eager to repair the relationship between Xiangqing and Sea City, and he also took the relationship between Huami and her very seriously. So Qin Jin took this matter as a big deal. It would not be a bad idea to use Yu Mengmeng's current experience as a training ground for these lawyers. Yu Mengmeng paused and asked, "Can he really get the money? But he can't even afford a thick piece of clothing now. Where will he get the money to compensate me?" Huami smiled and said, "Then let him go to dredge the Hunan Sea Expressway. He is looking for a job right now." If he works on the Hunan Sea Expressway, he can even get a thick coat. The thick jackets made of scraps of cloth by witches who have turned over a new leaf are actually also distributed to the workers who are installing light bulbs in Xiangqing. However, this jacket factory had just been established, and Kang Liangnu had to sew the first batch of jackets for herself before she could supply them to the outside. Therefore, the jackets have not been distributed to various units of Huami for a while. But Lu Shubua is not satisfied with his current job, so why not change jobs? The job of installing lights in the streets and alleys of Xiangqing is too comfortable. It is better to clear the road sections and exercise Lu Shubua's physique. Huami cares a lot about Lu Shubua. Qin Jun came very quickly. Although she was pregnant, she was very efficient and decisive in doing things. When she arrived at the RV supermarket, she was accompanied by a team of lawyers. Yes, a whole team of lawyers, about 10 people in total. The friends from Huami and RV supermarket were all stunned by what they saw. After hearing about Mingming's incident, I was also quite angry. Qin Jun said as he sat over with several bags of baby clothes in his hands. He stuffed a bunch of clothes for Yu Mengmeng and another bunch for Huami. I immediately contacted our hometown association in City C. They were very enthusiastic and helped us find these lawyers. Before Huami could say anything, Qin Jun reached out and held Yu Mingming's hand. We are all women, and we are all pregnant at this critical moment. Don't be afraid. We will definitely win this lawsuit, and everyone will help you. The lawyers were ready to go. They were wearing the thick clothes that Qin Jun had found for them, and their cheeks were red from the cold. Some lawyers' fingers were red and swollen, which were caused by frostbite from the cold in the past few days. The cities in the south have never been this cold, and many people don't even have thick clothes. In the south, when the winter is the coldest, all you need to do is put on an extra sweater or a coat. So you can see how many people can be frozen to death in this snowy weather. Fortunately, because Xiangqing and City B have sufficient supplies, many survivors will sell their excess and second-hand supplies in exchange for food. Many survivors from northern cities brought a lot of thick clothes with them when they came to Xiangqing and City B. So in Xiangqing and City B, as long as you have money, you can still buy a thick coat. Yu Mengmeng felt relieved and grateful, and told the lawyers her demands. In fact, Yu Mengmeng's request was very simple. She hoped to get a sum of money, once and for all, and never have to have any contact with her husband again. The child was conceived before the disaster. It was Lu Shubua's idea to have a child because he wanted one. Yu Mengmeng was very hesitant at the time because she had panda blood, and there were risks in getting pregnant and having a child. And if she gave birth to another child with panda blood, that child would have to suffer the same blood panic as her. As a result, when the child was only a few months old, the world became what it is today, and the whole world collapsed. Lu Shubua doesn't want a child anymore, which is understandable. He sees a child as a pencil mark. He writes on it when he wants one, and erases it when he doesn't want one. To him, it was just a thought. A woman is just pregnant. No matter the size of the baby in her belly, or whether the woman's body is suitable for it, she can just have it removed. No pain or itching. But who says that Yu Mengmeng must bear all the bitter fruits alone? If this has been the truth since ancient times, then it will no longer be the case from now on. The lawyers were full of vigor and enthusiasm and engaged in a professional discussion. After a while, the Xiangqing lawyers and judges that Kuminghong had found also arrived. Huami specifically pointed out 20 RVs to these people and asked these judges and lawyers to live in these RVs from then on. If they have immediate family members, they can also bring them to live with them. Before the disaster, Lu Shubua was pinned down from all sides by these top legal talents. He had no room to resist at all. The definition of a scumbag was quickly formulated by the talents, and an arrest warrant was approved for Lu Shubua. Either compensate Yu Mengmeng for the pregnancy expenses, delivery expenses, confinement expenses, childcare expenses, tuition fees, and living expenses totaling 3 million yuan, or dredge the Hunan Sea Expressway. Watching the arrest warrant being taken away by Chao Feng, Huami and Qin Zhen, who were sitting in another RV, smiled at each other. Huami stretched lazily, finally solved a big problem. Qin Zhen, who was sitting opposite him, responded with a smile. Yeah, I've been fed up with those scumbags for a long time. Now I can deal with them openly. It's great. After a pause, she looked at Huami with an apologetic look on her face. Ami, about Ma Jishuan's matter, Huami raised her hand and interrupted what Qingjun was about to say. I said, I just want to make money. Ma Ji's selection of this person will not affect my ability to make money. In other words, as long as Qingjun asked her to buy supplies, she would sell them. Qingjun smiled happily and immediately gave Huami another large stack of supply lists. Huami took it and looked at it. Mineral water, tarpaulin, respirator, various medical supplies, various rescue equipment, various fruits. You also need to customize 100,000 meters of straw ropes woven from straw and 100,000 cotton jackets. After reading to the end, Huami looked up and said to Qingjun, I can provide you with 100,000 meters of straw rope, but as you know, I am also short of cotton padded jackets, so I don't think it will be possible. Huami didn't need to remind him. Many people have realized that no one knows what this extreme weather will eventually become. The South has never seen such cold weather. Who knows whether it will get colder or hotter in the future? In this case, a qualified management must plan ahead and prepare more winter coats to ensure the survival of the survivors to the greatest extent possible. Huami only has a cotton padded jacket manufacturing factory for witches, but it has not yet been built. While building the factory, they started sewing cotton jackets. At present, every time a cotton padded jacket is sewn in this factory, the stock will be consumed internally. Judging from this situation, even Huami's own people have not yet achieved the goal of having a cotton padded jacket each. She had previously distributed 5 sets of cashmere thermal underwear to each of her people and the garrison. She kept 1,000 sets of the remaining thermal underwear for herself and sold the rest. As a result, it was all cleared out in one morning. Also cleared out was the coral fleece 4-piece set. It can be seen how hungry the market demand for thermal insulation equipment is now. Qingjun frowned his eyebrows, which were very fine and delicate. What should we do? Is there any warm substitute that you can sell to us in City C? Huami thought about it and suddenly received 2 prompts. Start security scan. Completion of Security and Defense Works Defense Project. Lianhua Xingxing Supermarket's wall heightened by 10 meters rating. Advanced Protection Engineering 13 square meters of black land were obtained.
Please select a site for the black land.
When a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X4 turn on security scan. Completion of Security and Defense Works Defense Project. Light tubes have been laid on the entire section of Xiangqing Road rating. Department-level protection project 14 square meters of black land were obtained.
Please select a site for the black land.
When a lucky draw X1 remaining lucky draws X5 want some wood? Huami suddenly asked Qingjun. Seeing Qingjun in a daze, Huami took out 10 stacks of Xiangqing Watchtower teleportation tickets, 10,000 tickets per stack, 10,000 yuan each. If you people from City C really can't stand the cold, you can go to the stalls in Xiangqing to shop and see if you can buy some second-hand thick clothes from private vendors. Or, come buy some wood. She now has 27 square meters of idle black land. If the people in City C want to warm themselves by the fire, Huami can plant trees on it all. Cut down trees that can be used for firewood. This Qingjun looked at the teleportation ticket in Huami's hand hesitantly. If you really don't have any other warm-keeping equipment to sell us, then wood is not out of the question. If there is enough wood, they can build several large stoves in City C and use them to provide collective heating for the survivors. But does Xiangqing have so much wood? There is another question. Qingjun lowered his head and looked at Huami's neatly stacked tickets. This ticket is so expensive? She suspected that Huami was trying to make money, just like it had been issuing bonds crazily before the economic collapse. Huami stacked up 10 stacks of teleportation tickets and pushed them towards Qingjun. Believe me, this money is well spent by you in City C. If an emergency really comes, even if the Xiangxi Road is cleared, people from City C will not have enough time to get to Xiangqing. By then, Qingjun will not think that Huami's teleportation tickets are too expensive. She will regret that she bought too few. Qingjun accepted the 10 stacks of Xiangqing Watchtower teleportation tickets with doubt. She looked at the instructions on the back of the teleportation ticket and felt that it was a child's trick. Tearing the ticket could teleport? But she was smart and didn't ask any more questions. She just thought that Huami was trying to make money. At this time, Qingjun was willing to give money to Huami, who was able to sell such a large amount of supplies to City C. The two began to discuss the quantity of wood to be purchased. Huami only sells wood by pound and ensures that the wood is dry. She couldn't provide 100,000 cotton padded jackets, but she could give City C 100,000 kilograms of wood in batches. A pound of wood costs 5 yuan. This price is not expensive. After all, a few pieces of firewood can burn for a long time. Qingjun had no objection to the price. Although the mountains and rivers are now overturned, if we mobilize a large number of survivors, endure the cold and snow to go outside the city to search, we can also pull back many uprooted trees. However, no matter how many trees there are outside City C, when all the survivors in the city start to burn firewood in large quantities, and no one knows when the snowy season will end. It is particularly important to bring in trees from outside to use as firewood. I want unlimited. Qingjun opened her mouth loudly. She looked at Huami seriously. We in City C have no objection to the price, but you can't set a fixed number for us. After all, no one can predict when winter will end. What if all 100,000 kilograms of wood are burned up? Huami, you and I both know that no one can guarantee what will happen next. She didn't know where Huami's supplies came from, but since Huami offered to provide 100,000 kilograms of wood to City C, it proved that Huami could actually provide more wood. Otherwise, how could she ensure that Xiangqing and City B could survive